pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome. Do we have any comments from the public regarding items that are not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to any amendments to the agenda, David?
No amendments.
Can I suggest one? I would like to talk a little bit about potential couple follow-up things from the legislative session and some of the things that came out of there. Hopefully I brought my.
Where would you like to put that?
Well, maybe I don't want to put it there at all because I don't know.
Why don't we put it after city-school collaboration? So we'll make it 6A.
It's actually a perfect fit for what
Yeah.
my conversation was that we do around the
thinking.
legislative thing.
Perfect. We're going to put that at 6A, Martin.
Well, I'm not sure if I have a next one. Yeah, I do.
All right, announcements?
So you do have those at your place, and I was hoping for Sabine. I did talk with her today, but,
Do they know where we are?
yeah, I think they do. Yeah, the signs will do that. Do we not have those?
I think they're on the copier.
That's all right. So you know what, we can get them, and,
I'll be right back.
Okay, we'll just keep going then.
and actually with the students, I was gonna have the students start doing the announcements since it's more at the beginning, but.
Can I have one? I'll just hold on until we do that.
So we'll move to, we'll come back to announcements and we'll do city-school collaboration.
Mhm. So, again, part of our ongoing connections with the city, which happens frequently, I did meet with them yesterday, or no, was that today? I met with them today. And, again, our ongoing conversation has been healthy around just, things happening both city and school, master planning and visioning conversation, again, being healthy for September. One of the major topics of conversation today, however, was about the legislative session. And so I did talk with Elizabeth about this prior to, and, we think it would be a good idea and wanted to see if they would be interested, but having kind of a legislative wrap-up. Typically, we do legislative breakfasts, but that's at the pre-legislative session. And given all of what you probably have been trying to follow, I think Martin probably is going to allude to some of this, but for instance, 673, which has some pretty significant implications, we felt it would be good to have a kind of a wrap-up meeting. We can kind of have a summary of the bills that went through and then leave it open to city council and board members to kind of ask any questions, but also share concerns and kind of desired next step directions and also solicit feedback from them. So the idea for that meeting, what we were thinking about was June 3rd, 8 o'clock to, kind of a breakfast type thing, 8 o'clock to like 9:15-ish or something like that. So that's a busy day, I know, based on the conversation that I think we just had. The idea is not to let too much time go into then or June and July, to be able to do that, so.
The legislatures actually have a wrap-up for the public the evening before.
Yeah, on the 2nd.
June 2nd.
I'm not exactly sure for SB where that is, or if that's all it's in
the
county.
library conference room.
Yeah.
At least the announcement I saw.
Well, if the 2nd, I think that would be a tough venue to bump into that, probably.
No, I wasn't suggesting that, I was only saying that this might be good timing because
We know they're around for
they're
that
around,
meeting.
Second.
they're around the night before, right? So,
I didn't catch that, Dan, I appreciate you letting me know that. I didn't hear the legislative wrap-up.
I think Ann Pugh has a mailing list of some sort.
So we'll shoot for the 3rd.
The 3rd, 8 o'clock, some breakfast, 8 to 9.
Ann seems to be the person that organizes the legislators for doing this.
Hi, Sabine. I did talk with Ann at the Veterans Memorial for a bit, and that was part of the conversation that Elizabeth and I had. I thought it would be helpful. So, anyway, I know that that's another morning out. I'm sensitive to that, but I do think there's a fair amount of things that are on there, and we felt like it would be good to have the conversation. So, we'll send an email reminder out, assuming successful, scheduling with the legislators.
Okay, and to the extent that we can start to both dollarize or quantify and qualify the impact to the district, short-term and long-term, of the legislation that just passed, and even pending legislation that we believe might roll over to the next session,
Mhm.
I think that would be helpful.
Right, for us to be able to share with them some of the understanding and the impact.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's good.
David, do you need the board to check their calendars too, to see if that, because we want to make sure that someone is available and.
Yeah, so we'll send something out. This was, again, just from a today meeting. I haven't sent anything out to you or to the legislators yet. So if that doesn't work, it'd probably be good to, you can't all check calendars now. We'll send it out in the morning. Let us know if that June 3rd, that time can work. Obviously, if no one can come from you, then that's probably not good. But if the majority of you can come, then we'll work to go to the next step to get legislators scheduled or see if they're available. Obviously, if they're not available, then that will call it off too. But my guess is they would welcome it.
Good.
Thanks.
Martin, did you have?
Yeah, 6A.
Actually, I don't have my notes with me, so I can either, there's a couple issues I had, but I might miss a couple. We may want to just put it on the agenda for the next time
Okay.
for 10, 15 minutes to make sure I haven't missed anything.
And
It's
this-
nothing that's so pressing, but I think it's something we have to watch for going forward.
Is this coming out of the VSBA work that you?
Yeah,
Okay.
what they sent, and there was a couple things I thought we should chat about.
Right.
The implications of the legislation, which we haven't talked about before, so.
Okay, good. All right, why don't we shift back to agenda item 5, and this on announcements, and I think
And
we
Sabina.
were gonna invite Sabina to make some
Actually, I don't know
announcements
if,
for
does
us.
she have a copy of the announcements yet? Oh, come on.
Here they are.
I gave her a little assignment today, didn't I, or whenever. Yeah, oh, she has a few. She has a lot going on, Sabina does.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can embellish where you wish. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, class of 2014, my class, we have quite a few artists, and the senior show will be at 1 Main Street in Burlington, and there are 15 artists participating. And so that closing reception is next Wednesday from 6 to 7. We had the art festival recently. I think some of you went. And that was really cool. The seniors all get their own boards, and those are really interesting. They're all very different, but they're very nice to see. So next Monday we don't have school because of Memorial Day, so that's exciting. Well, no school. The June 11th board meeting will be at the middle school library instead of Chamberlain School. And then Chamberlain School has some things going on. That's exciting. I went to Chamberlain. Fun fact. So they have their Fit and Healthy Assembly, the FH Thomas Jazz Band, I'm assuming that's a concert, and then a layperson's tea on June 2nd. So, sounds fun. Hopefully you guys can make it. The 8th graders took their science kneecaps recently. That's unfortunate for them. I'm sure they did great, though.
I have to take this job away
Oh, this has been the most exciting.
That's right, I know.
You can't do much to her now, David. You already signed her
We should have started
diploma.
this much earlier.
I'm sure they did great, though. We have good scores. And then the musicians will have the middle school musicians will have their final chorus performance this Wednesday, tomorrow, at 7 in the high school auditorium. So that'll be really cool. I'm sure they'll do a great job.
And any other things you would like to announce that?
Yeah, give us
You
some high
capture-
school news.
Do you want the student rep report?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, this Thursday's the spring blood drive that the student council is hosting. So we're looking forward to that. Our signups are really low, though. I think Last we checked, they were in the 30s to 40s, and usually at this time they're in the 80s.
Is this in the gym or?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, the gym.
Oh, I didn't get a notice on that.
Oh, weird. It's this Thursday. If you're able to show up, that would be great. If not, you should tell everybody you know. Yeah, this is usually our big one, but because of like the marathon and spring sports, it's why we're probably getting lower signups. But hopefully that'll turn out well. The Red Cross is looking forward to it, obviously. And then within student council, there's a lot changing actually. So we elected the officers for next year, and Nirja's was not able to make it tonight, but she's taking my place, so she's gonna be vice president next year of the council. And then Peter Camardo is president, and Eli Racklin is the secretary. So those will be the new officers. And then because of Mr. Painter's fellowship, he's not going to be the advisor next year. So it's actually going to be Mrs. McDowell, which she's also a math teacher. So we have a really good crew, though. She's great, so I'm sure it'll all turn out well. We have no doubts or anything. But yeah, we're really excited about that. I mean, sad and excited. Sad to like leave. And then we've had elections going on this week for the class officers. So that was freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. And Luke is his class president, which is really exciting, which is really surprising because, you know, he ran uncontested. Yeah, and then this Friday there is a coffee house for Burke, and that's going to be in the cafeteria here at 7 p.m., I think. And basically it's like there's going to be food and coffee and performances, and it's very low-key, but they're hoping to raise money for the Hope Lodge. And the suggested donation is $5, but I believe it's free. So that's really cool.
This is at the middle school?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But the high school drama club, I believe,
This
is organizing
Thursday night.
this Friday night.
Friday.
Yeah. So I'm sure it'll have a good turnout, hoping to raise some money. And then this Friday during the school day is Freshman Community Service Day. So all freshmen and their SLAM leaders and advisors go somewhere in the area and do anything they can to help out. So it ranges from picking up trash to, I'm not really sure, but you know, community service, which is really great. So that's what's been going on. AP exams were just finished last week, and then there are makeups this week and next week, I believe. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah, I think that's it.
I think a couple other things. I think several of us have participated in sophomore exhibitions this past week. And
I went to
coming
one
up.
actually.
Did you do one?
Yeah, my sophomore year, but
Yeah.
one of my friends did one, and hers was really good. She was like really nervous about it and stuff, but then she got up there and it was so good. Yeah, so she gets her junior privileges now, which is exciting.
And congratulations on the article on your work on the reparative board.
Thank you.
It's great.
That's cool.
On
Or
that
maybe
same
sound
note,
good.
I know again a lot of you folks participated on sophomore exhibition, so thanks for that. Pam McKenzie also from the council was asked into that, and she's commented today, you know, just being very thankful to be, you know, participating in that, and that really shed some important light for her. And Rebecca Holcomb, the secretary, also participated in a sophomore one as well, and she also has had some positive. I'll make sure to send that information on to you. So again, part of, as you know, in the state, you know, personalized learning plans and things of that nature, really they're interested in seeing what we've been doing here at the high school. So
Oh, and there have also been kneecap tests for juniors. They took their science ones as well, I believe. It's
Good.
fun for them. They get bagels and ice cream sandwiches, so that makes it a little bit better.
We're getting so much more information than we got
yeah,
from
I
David.
know. I mean, jeez. Oh.
You want to stay another year?
Yeah, we can tell Middlebury. We can tell Middlebury to hold
You could do
off, right?
post-grad year, yeah.
Thanks, Sabina.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on
just have
to,
one
sorry.
other-
I'm sorry, Diane.
That's okay. So I attended the PACT community dinner, the final dinner of the year, and They presented awards for various community groups, for community partnerships, including the South Burlington School Board. So pass that on to
Nice.
Elizabeth.
Great. Very nice.
Congratulations to your school board.
Thanks. Any other announcements? All right, we'll move on to agenda item 7, school property regulations. Looks like an action item.
Correct. And so we're happy to have Paul Connor, the city planner here, and also Martin, who has been really active in the form-based code and some of this work. And this is particularly to talk about the zoning currently that's in play, certainly in the city, but in the city center area. And so Paul's here to kind of provide, I think, helpful information to the board. And again, we're very happy to have you here, Paul. So welcome. And I don't know, Martin, if you wanted to kick anything else off with.
I tried to explain Central School and the effect of the form-based codes on Central School at our last meeting, and felt I just didn't do it enough justice, and would call in the expert to save me and have you people really understand what's going on. So that's you, Paul.
Shoot, okay. Well, thank you for having me. Again, my name is Paul Connor. I'm the Director of Planning and Zoning across the street. And I am here to, I guess, add a little bit of information and mostly just answer some questions that you have. As you know, it's started in 2011, I guess, that we started really seriously beginning to look at what would a future zoning and land development regulations, which is what we typically call them, look like for the larger city center area. And you can define city center as being about 20 different places, but in this case we're talking about not only the area that's undeveloped along Market Street, but San Remo Drive, Williston Road, parts of Heinsberg Road, really the area that people would consider to be sort of the core of the city, inside of where you start to find much more residential single-family homes. So it's bounded by the Chamberlain neighborhood, by Mayfair Park, by the Interstate and East Terrace, and of course the high school and everything that's south of here. So the council hired a firm to work with us that would develop a form-based code, and really a form-based code is just a writing style. So it's still a land development regulation, it's still zoning regulations, but the emphasis is shifted a little bit away from individual uses as to whether it's a donut shop or a bagel shop. They're both shops, and traditional zoning might differentiate those things. And instead focuses much more heavily on the form of the building, in terms of the heights, the locations, the setbacks, the windows, all these things. And it essentially, the form somewhat dictates what will go in it, in that a large warehouse facility is not going to take place in a place that has to have doors every 30 feet, for instance. In the city center area, we've actually had for a long time regulations that are somewhat along those lines, that have required that buildings be up towards the front of up towards the street. So the recent Trader Joe's that I'm sure everybody has been to by now is under the current regulations. So it made the buildings be up near the front. The current standards also have pretty heavy design review, which is a separate board review of architectural standards, and that has produced some good results, but it's also been extremely labor intensive on all parties. And that's one of the things we were looking to see: is there a way to do it that would be a little more black and white? A form-based code really focuses on, here's the bar, you're either over it or under it. So the discussion as it relates to the school property started with looking at it being in what's called a special district. So in many form-based codes, properties that are forever into the future known to be municipal properties, parks, University of Vermont, things like that, are often in what's called a special district, because the school or the buildings or the library or whatever it might be are a little bit unique. If you go to most traditional downtowns, the civic buildings don't quite match the sort of downtown form, and that's okay. They're supposed to stand out a little bit, being a little bit special. That's where it started. But we had some discussions, Martin and myself and David, and I think you had a conversation back in March about is that the right concept for this particular property? And we looked back and we sort of backpedaled a little bit and looked to the current zoning. The current zoning in that district is as what we call Central District 1. It is zoned as a downtown area. And what it does is it allows the school to continue to operate. There are certain parameters around if it's the school is a non-conforming building is what we call it, so there can be certain additions under certain rules. It's also exempt from all those design standards. That's specifically written in there. The conversation that we had was that it might make sense to preserve that same flexibility in the future. And so we got some guidance from you all that you'd like to see it be considered as what we call a T4, and that's very techie language for basically a downtown that's not quite the core of downtown. So areas like a College Street or something similar to Farrell Street could be sort of the maximum of a T4. And that lines up pretty closely with your current zoning. What we did was to apply all the standards. So if there's a new development for whatever reason that was not school related, it would need to meet the standards, which is exactly what the current regulations say. We also came up with some language for a civic site, which includes a school, and how schools would be dealt with. And there's two paths. The very simple path is that we've actually expanded a little bit the flexibility that might exist for what's these non-conforming. So if there's just little additions and things, that it's very straightforward. And then we also crafted some language in here for if there was going to be a major addition that was a school-related one or other civic site. And instead of requiring all of those standards that I just spoke about of numbers of doors and stories and that X% of the building must be right up along a street, we took a crack at writing a standard in here that would talk about the Development Review Board having evidence that there was a public process that led to the design, which is really ultimately any action that is taken for on the city side of the street to the school board side of the street is going to have to be a public process. The voters aren't going to approve a major expenditure without it having that. So that's really the approach that we've taken to it. That if the voters and therefore their elected officials say this is really the plan that we're going forward with, then that is already giving the sense of what the community wants. So that's largely how that is. There are certain standards that will still apply, like the minimum amount of open space, and I can go through them individually, but certain ones that apply. But the ones that are the most restrictive to the sort of particular uses of the school are given an exemption in there. So that's the main piece of it, and how the draft is right now. The process from here forward, because as public officials we're big on process, is that the Planning Commission has this draft in their hands right now. They are trying to wrap up, possibly at their next meeting or the meeting following that, with a complete, what we're calling red line draft, sort of having gone through every T and I. And then they're going to release it for public comment for some period of time that they'll determine, probably in the 4 to 6 week range. All property owners, all residents, business owners, visitors, all welcome to provide comments on it, committees. After that, they'll review those, see if there's any changes that they feel need to take place. Then they'll start the formal adoption process, which is a public hearing at their level, passing it off to the city council, public hearing at their level, and then the decision as to whether to adopt or not. So that's sort of the quick 15-cent version of it. Martin had asked me if I could just speak very briefly to the question of uses, because, as I said, a form-based code generally doesn't say too much about uses. The Planning Commission, in looking through it, did want to make a few specific prohibitions. So there's two categories that they have decided to apply. One is things that are prohibited, period, and those they largely took from the list of uses that are currently prohibited in city center, in fact, citywide. Junkyards, motor freight terminals in the city center area, and adult uses being the three big ones. So that's prohibited use is today and would be in the future under this code. They also came up with a list. The current central district regulations, which is the same area here, has a list of additional specifically prohibited activities. And I can go through them, but they're things like manufacturing, car washes, drive-through establishments, wholesale establishments, taxi companies, bottle redemption centers. What the Planning Commission is, where they're going with this right now is they have proposed that these activities be prohibited for any buildings that are not complying with the future code. So if you took a building on Williston Road that is set back from the street and so on and so forth, they can't just add a drive-through. They can't just turn it into a manufacturing facility. It would have to meet the code and all in its entirety in order for that use to be able to take place, which, as I described before, oftentimes and in many cases, the form will then sort of dictate what realistically can and cannot happen in a facility. So that's the approach they've taken at this point to make sure that existing sort of warehousey buildings don't get all of a sudden uses that were prohibited today allowed tomorrow. So that's the sort of brief roundup on uses there.
Paul, is there will special districts exist?
There are none in the city center code. We are continuing to work towards a citywide one.
Mm-hmm.
I expect that in other areas it probably will exist. Currently, the Orchard School, the Chamberlain School, City Hall site here, the Public Works building, they're all what we would currently call a municipal district.
Mm-hmm.
We might call it a special district, a municipal district. That probably will exist in that form. UVM has part of their dorms and athletic facilities. That doesn't really easily fit in. The airport is sort of its unique thing. Mm-hmm. The idea of a special district is it doesn't easily fit into a category. It's sort of a unique physical feature.
And do you see any, I think you've addressed this, Martin, before, but I'll ask the question again, or is there any concern the district or the board should have shifting from a special to a T4?
I don't think so. I mean, as I said, when we had the conversation, Martin and David and I, we were looking to see what most closely approximates the current regulations. And that's, the T4 is very close in that respect. There are a few differences. One is that there isn't the design review standard in the future. Another is that the current zoning says that if you had a blank piece of property, that the buildings must be in the first 90 feet, and if they're longer than 90 feet, then they have to be 2 stories tall. Mm-hmm. The future code says it has to be 2 stories, essentially, with very few exceptions. So it's very similar. Mm-hmm. I don't think the flexibility for the school remains the same, being a special district or being in a T4 because of the way we've written it. It's basically the exact same language. We just said it applies in a T4 as opposed to it applies in a special district, and it affords that additional flexibility that currently exists for whatever future the school district may or may not wish to consider.
Thank you.
So, I have a few questions on this. Now, my understanding is in part, and this is also addressing what Elizabeth just asked about, having the central school property be designated T4 actually increases our flexibility. If sometime down the road, Central School's not going to be there, that's one possibility, which isn't on the table at all, but it does give the flexibility that it can immediately be used for this particular zoned higher value kind of zoning area. More likely in the shorter term is there's a road where there's a right-of-way that will cut through part of the school property. And if that's where the right-of-way ends up, if that's where the road extends, the school district will have some amount of property that will be across the street. And presumably to have that as valuable as possible, unless it's just left as a park or whatever, having it as a T4 zone will bring that value. Is that, I mean,
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. And I do want to be clear that zoning is regulations, it's not dictating anything. So the school board and of course its voters are the property owners. And so this is flexibility, not a requirement that any one action take place one way or the other.
Right. The other question is actually it's more specific, and that has to do with the language regarding civic sites.
Yeah.
And under civic sites, modification of standards, there's the list, and you mentioned the one as far as presence of a public design process.
Yep.
Informal recommendation. The Roman numeral 3 and 4, the consistency of the project with the purposes of the applicable T-zone and comprehensive plan.
Mhm.
Now, that's something that DRB would be considering as far as...
That's the draft. To relate it in some form to the intent of the city center. We're open. This is somewhat unique language, so we're open to additional suggestions or other ways. We wanted to give the DRB as best as possible. There's a fair amount of case law history that says that there needs to be a fairly predictable outcome. So we were trying to hang it on other adopted documents, such as the purpose statement here, the comprehensive plan. If you have additional suggestions of how to give the DRB as specific a tool that gives the most flexibility, which are sort of not always good neighbors with one another, specificity and flexibility. But
I guess the issue I had with that and the last one, advancement where appropriate of the project with design elements encouraged within the applicable T-zone, those both seem really vague to me. I mean, that would give the DRB a very broad, and off the top of my head, I don't know how one would narrow those, but I'm just raising that as a concern. I'm not sure.
No, I think it's a fair point. There are specific design features that are encouraged in each of the T-zones, like having solar-ready roofs, being LEED certified, things like that. So there are certain things that are encouraged.
Well, could these be? Could those two sections at least reference the other sections that you're referring to?
Absolutely.
We were going to have a district attorney just look at this language. Have we had heard back? Because all right, so we won't waste a bunch of time on that bit, but I just kind of flagging that.
Take it as food for thought, and if as a board or individually or just you, Martin, would like to help, we want to make sure that this is as clear as possible for all those reviewing it. We're all on the exact same page with that.
Okay.
But the board would have flexibility, I mean, if they chose to take action to move it from its current special district to T4 tonight, with the language that Martin's referencing as still ongoing part of the discussion, not yet acted on, right?
Yes. The draft that is in front of the Planning Commission right now has it as a T4, based on at least some conversations that we'd have. It's not locked in stone right now, but the entire thing is getting close to completion, but it's not locked up. And certainly, if it was appropriate and you wanted us to continue to work on that as part of your request, then that would be fully appropriate. I did want to mention one other thing. When I was speaking about uses, I'd forgotten that back in November, when Martin and his work on the Form-Based Code Committee was wrapping up, they had included a requirement. There is allowed to be service stations, gas stations, in this district, but there's a specific requirement that they be 300 feet away at a minimum from the edge of any civic site. So that was one other sort of little piece that relates to the schools.
Right, and let me jump off from that, and that is, we submitted a proposed safety zone for the schools, as you know, and we had, in there, we had 10 different uses that we thought should be prohibited around a sketched out area around the schools, including the middle school, actually all the schools, kind of looking down the road where form-based code might go. And I understand from what you're telling us is that the Planning Commission has 3 of those uses that we suggested should be barred, are now barred as for all of the form-based codes city center.
Yep.
Did the Planning Commission specifically look at the other 7 and they said no to those, or what's the status of the other 7?
So it's they broke it out into a few different pieces. So there's the 3 that we listed off earlier that are specifically, they reviewed it and agreed and put it in there. The next grouping are items that I had mentioned. There's a bunch of prohibited uses that is under the current regulation that is largely related to that same list. So we gave the Planning Commission your list and the current list and put them side by side, and they matched up in many cases. That's where they came to the conclusion that any existing building that doesn't 100% meet the code is not allowed to have those activities. Like
the list from Article 8.03.
Yep, the one I just listed off there. So that was in both because it was a piece that they wanted to tackle and because that was related to your request. They, back in January, had heard a presentation from you about the medical offices dispensing certain types of drugs. What they had decided at that time was to wait to see what the Supreme Court would decide on that. So that was essentially tabled at that time, and we'll take it up once the Supreme Court has ruled.
Okay, so that's essentially tabled, and that's not
right. And then then the last one that was a specific one that they had a discussion on was the question of bars, which was one that you all had submitted a suggestion, and they did have a discussion. I'd be happy to get the minutes to you. They weighed it, they discussed it, they talked about enforceability, how it would be judged, who can term whether it's a bar or it's a restaurant. They talked a little bit about hours of operation and school hours and the geography of all this, and their determination at the time was to not include that was to not prohibit that use in the city center area.
Yeah, and I can send an email as a reminder I would like to probably see those minutes just to
absolutely.
understand on that.
They're also posted to our website, but I'd be happy to
Oh.
send it to David or you, and you can share it with the whole board.
Yeah.
I would send it to all of you, but I don't have all of your email addresses.
No, that would be fine.
Sure.
I think that was all. And you mentioned the process, but what is the latest as far as the timing? When is the Planning Commission going to forward this to the council?
They are working
Approximately.
expediently,
Okay.
but they are also trying to be conscientious of public process, and so it will depend a little bit on the extent and depth of feedback that they receive. So if they receive feedback that it's 96% looking good and they're just sort of crossing some I's and dotting some T's, then likely they, after this 4-week period, they would take a meeting or two to review the comments. So that would be bringing it into July. They would warn a public hearing. Warning dates mean that would likely be sometime in the middle of August. Then they would hand it off to council. Council would likely get it in late August, early September for consideration and hearing. So that's sort of the timeline. But if the comments come back and people say, you're
Great.
we're completely off base,
Wow.
then that could slow it a little bit. So they haven't published a formal schedule because they want to be flexible to
Okay.
to the community's needs.
Great.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very
Good
much.
update.
Do you want me to stick around for your action here? Or do you want me to
I don't
just,
know that we have an action at this
there's
point.
no action required
Yeah, I mean.
from
I
our
think-
end.
Yeah, right, I think we were essentially gonna, at some point, call it a blessing or approval or agreement that we like, that we're on board with this part of it. But I think, I raised a couple of questions tonight, and we still need to hear from the district's attorneys, I would think.
Yeah.
Well, an appropriate time would be when the planning commission, hopefully in just a few weeks' time, sends it out for community comment. That would be a great time to hear. If the board wanted to make formal comments, to do it at that time would be great. And
So June 11th, I think, is our next meeting. Maybe we can put it back on the calendar for them. Do you think we can get an attorney to look at it in time for that?
it's
I think
the
if you
earliest
want
that
to
the
go
planning
just
the earliest that the planning commission would decide to go ahead with this public comment period would be June 10th, their next meeting. So you'll have at least, I don't know what your meeting schedule is, but you'll probably
June
have
11th,
at least,
I think, is
June
our
11th is
our
our
next meeting.
and you'll probably have the following one also,
Okay.
depending on your schedule.
All right, great. Thanks.
Thank
Paul.
you.
Thank you very much. Can I steal my map?
So we'll not take action on that.
So I would say maybe you and I, if you can get work with me. In this case, I just
Thanks,
thought
Bob.
maybe you can help. Just
All right, we'll move on
make sure
to
it's
agenda
part of
item 8, an update on the methadone clinic appeal.
So that's me. I have nothing new to report. I do think it's important that I did inquire to the methadone clinic or the Howard Center leadership, just that I've heard some community, information about. There seems to be some construction type things happening, and I think it's appropriate just to let the board know that I just inquired, is there something going on there that we should know, being their neighbors? So I haven't heard anything back from them yet, but I wanted to let you know that. There's been no new news, again, on our current appeal in front of the Supreme Court. We've not heard anything yet, so again, that's all I have to report.
All right. All right, an update on the proposed grade 5 transition.
The proposed grade 5 transition, again, they're ongoing meetings. They have another one this Thursday. I have been really clear, most recently with the steering committee leadership, that I want to have a report so that I then on June 11th can provide the board with my summary, and obviously provide you with kind of ahead of time some information that might be specific in that report. I have not yet received anything from the steering committee. They're working on that. Again, there's all kinds of things happening in that regard. So I know that there's been an immense amount of work that people have done, community members and these committees, and I know that they've been working through a multitude of questions, and some still unanswered, I think. So safe to say, the process is still ongoing.
So, David, are you saying that on the 11th, that would be the date that you would present a decision? That
Yeah,
you
and I
made?
think it's right for me to do this. That's kind of the way I set it out in the beginning, is in June. I don't think it would be right to stretch it to the final month of June, when school then is out and I've lost some of the folks, and June 11th being, I think, a critical time for us to, for me to, update the board, share with the board where I'm at, as I said I would at the very beginning. And so I think it's really important that we just get that out there, and that be on the June 11th agenda, which I've made a note of when we get to that part of it.
Yeah, and it sounds like you would have a goal to get information to the board ahead of time?
Yep. Yeah, I think it would be fair if, again, I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, because I haven't put it together yet. I haven't received it. So I don't think it's really fair for you to try to hear it, digest it, and have questions without having some lead time for that. So that's been worked in with the steering committee group. I think it's going to be tight, because their last meeting is on the 3rd or 4th or something like that. So anyway.
May I?
Yes.
So there's an amazing amount of data that everybody's trying to work through in these last couple of weeks, and I think everybody, including David, realizes that it's a hell of a timeline that the board members have been under, and they are working really, really hard to make something happen. But they can't possibly do everything that needs to be done in this amount of time. So I guess, I just want to reinforce that they are trying so hard to get the information that's needed, and that there is a bunch of data out there that, Elizabeth, at least I sent it to you and David, some articles that hadn't been brought up before that are more current studies on the proposal, and what seems to be driving a lot of institutions around the country as far as K through 5, K through 6, K through 8 models. So I would just reinforce if there's an opportunity to look at some of that data as well. I'm a little concerned that the data that's been presented in the past has been so dated, as in from the early 2000s, and maybe we need to look at something that's more current. So, but yeah, people are working hard. And if they're asked to continue, it might be a hard sell, because it's a lot of personal time that's coming out of people's lives.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay. And with that packet, will you include references? I don't know if I was the only one who got copied from the board on your information, but
The other kind of correspondence, you mean?
I think we all got
Mhm.
that. Okay. All right.
So-
But if you're going to include
Put
it in
So
by way of
remind us-
background.
Remind us of any major checkpoints that are coming up in this regard, David?
June is the checkpoint,
Just generically June?
somewhere in June. And again, I don't feel like it's good for me to be waiting until our final meetings in June and then delaying that. I think it's really important that I give you wherever we are, wherever the committees are, wherever the data resides, I give you an update and some directional leadership around where I'm going with this, and allow you then the opportunity to provide me with some feedback and me to help you answer some questions in my kind of directional decision there. So,
And I would assume with that report, we would also get information gaps, 'cause I'm assuming the subcommittees probably have identified areas they haven't been, but in that time frame may not be able to
yeah.
specifically identify, so that we'd have a laundry list of here's items we wanted to look at but couldn't get to.
Yeah, I suspect, again, I've tried to stay distant to that, but I definitely know and have provided some, responses to the steering committee that have been, we're having a real, and I've just said, continue to do your work, and like Mark said, work hard to resolve those to the best of your ability, and we'll see where we rest when we come to, said date, and then I'll be able to take it from there and make a determination on what we're gonna do next.
May I, David, again? I'll tell you, I've got a draft here that I will not show you, but we're working on a draft, and a lot of the draft is unanswered questions and things that need to continue to be looked at. So.
And Mark, you're on Mark's on one of the committees. If
I'm
it's
on the community outreach.
community outreach.
Frankly, I think most of the people on that committee feel that it was a misnomer.
It could have been called something different.
It could have been called something different, yeah. So, because there hasn't been nearly as much community outreach as there might have been, or could have been, or maybe even should have been. And that was just a matter of figuring out, what it was that we should be doing from the very beginning. So, but I think, at least from our committee, I can tell you for a fact, there's going to be a laundry list of these questions still need to be answered. And these are the opportunities that we see and things that could still be done.
Good.
John maybe wanted to.
Yeah.
I'm a member of the infrastructure committee, and our task last time was to answer as many public questions as we could online, and secondly, to do a draft of the report. So Thursday's report, people's input will be reviewed. And there was a discussion about who might want to continue on if that's the case, and there were quite a few people who were willing, at least we're going to consider it. And there were others that I can't do it anymore. So
It's a big time commitment, especially for the teachers who have been on. And some of the teachers that came onto our committee weren't originally asked. We brought them in and said, will you please? One of them being a French teacher at the middle school, who we just happened to be using her room, and we went in and said, "Won't you stay?" And she's been staying ever since. So, much to her credit. So, but we had to have some teachers on that committee. So yeah, I'm sorry if John's absolutely right. There are definitely people who will go forward with it if they're asked to go forward with it. It has been a big commitment, and will continue to be.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to agenda item 10, student representative report.
I think
Is
she
that-
kind of covered.
we
I
covered
kind
in
of
announcements,
backed her
okay.
into doing all of
All right.
them. And
We may move that up
yeah,
again.
we will. I think that'd be good.
All right, on to superintendent's report.
So what I have here is the RFP for the audit for the teacher performance and evaluation practice. And Martin and Julie had the opportunity to be part of the bid openings, right? Julie and Martin, part of the bid openings along with myself, John, and Karen Gantry. So, am I missing somebody? No? So I just thought it would give them an opportunity just to give a little bit of an update. They haven't had an exorbitant amount of time to look at the two proposals, but allow them to then give you the board the feedback and myself. So, Martin or Julie?
I think everybody's heard enough from me tonight.
I'll add in.
Really. All right. So there were two different proposals. They both had their strengths and weaknesses. One is from Cope and Associates, which is out of Shelburne. The second is from Sarah Denny, who is out of, I don't remember where she's out of. Burlington, sorry, out of Burlington. And it's interesting, the one seemed to be perhaps too much in various ways, including, I think, on the high side as far as how much they've quoted. And the other doesn't seem to be doing perhaps enough. That's kind of, I mean, just in the most simplistic manner. The one from Cope, I assume it's fine to talk about figures and that's it.
Yeah, it's
The one from Cope is around $14,000. It's fairly extensive in it lays out what they would do in a very detailed manner, and a lot of what they're proposing that they would do I like. The one from Ms. Denny is $3,000, around the same amount of time, but just a lot lower hourly cost. But it wasn't as detailed, although I think perhaps she's getting at the primary questions. Where I think we ended up, and Julie will correct me if I'm misstating this, is that I think we need to probably sit down with, at least with Sarah Denny and talk a little bit further about whether in fact she's hitting what we want to hit and just didn't explain it enough. I think we really just on the basis of the proposal would like to go with Cope, but that it's $11,000 more. And I think that we probably can get what we want if we go and work a little further with Sarah Denny. And I guess my proposal would be that in fact a committee of the board, and I think Julie and I would be happy to do it, would actually sit down with her and talk to her about her proposal and make sure that we would cover all the issues that we would want to have covered. Because some of what she said is just it's a little bit vague, but perhaps she in fact is going to get into it. They both have the experience, although I believe that Ms. Denny may have more experience with the Danielson model. It's not clear. Did I miss that with the Cope?
No.
They talked about evaluations and such, but didn't really talk specifically about the Danielson model. That may actually, in fact, favor Cope. There's some things that favor Cope, and that is that they seem to be more, even though they have educational experience, more of an outsider, that they would bring perhaps perspective beyond just in the education world, whereas Miss Denny, I think, really is just in the education community and may not bring the broader perspective to the evaluation. But again, the price tag really lends me pause and suggests that that's not enough of an extra advantage to be going with COPE. So I think that was my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So conversely, is there an opportunity to sit with COPE and sort of understand where there might be an opportunity to scale back, but still get essential information?
I think we could do that, but based on the number of, I think it's really the hourly rate that
hourly
we're
rate,
dealing
okay.
with, and the number of hours they're suggesting is really comparable. So
Okay. So it's really the rate that's driving.
it's the rate.
Okay.
So Martin, can you talk more about the, when you say the larger scope outside of education, and just help me understand why that would be important? Because I look at, like, the expertise as within education, so I'm just wondering about
Right,
sort of
right.
what you see as an advantage of that.
Well, if the person has just worked with the Danielson model, and I think that kind of was my impression of Ms. Denny. I mean, she may not be as open to understanding maybe different perspectives on how to approach certain aspects of the performance evaluation. I mean, I wouldn't want somebody coming in without any experience in looking at evaluations, performance evaluations in the educational context. But having some outside perspective, I don't know, it might give them, they may be able to find issues that can be improved, areas that can be improved, that somebody who's just kind of really only done Danielson. I don't, maybe I'm wrong about that. That's where it was my perspective. But,
Okay,
but
so when you say broader, it's still education, but it's beyond the Danielson.
it's
expertise
education and
in-
other organizations, from what I understand.
Yeah, I would have said breadth could include experience with other performance evaluation systems, actually even outside of education. But I think there's agreement we need expertise within education, but performance evaluation processes or systems that might, I think you're saying it the same way.
Yeah.
Inclusive, but even outside of the Danielson model.
And does COPE actually have experience with the Danielson model too?
That was not clear.
It wasn't
to me.
clear,
That
although-
wasn't clear to me. And it's not, and I'm not suggesting that we want to all of a sudden change the Daniels model, because from what I understand, it's an excellent model. But somebody having had other experiences might see ways to improve it. That somebody who's only done that model,
Right.
that's kind of how it. But frankly, I don't think. I kind of went back to, well, why are we primarily hiring this person? And that is because we can't look at we can't look at the teacher evaluation information ourselves, because we someday could be hearing a grievance and we'd have to recuse ourselves. So we're hiring eyes for us. We're hiring the direct inspection that we would otherwise do ourselves. And that's also why I suggest that we need to be very involved with this person in this project, and that person's going to be our eyes and is going to figure things out, and we're going to have lines drawn where we don't get to know any of the details that we can understand. So I kind of go back to that. We don't need necessarily COPE to do that. I mean, we can go with this other option. There's kind of really, it would be kind of interesting to have a broader examination and input, but I kind of try to go back to what we originally were trying to do. And this is a direct inspection. We're not trying to revamp Danielson. We're not trying to
Well, actually, more specifically, it's direct inspection on behalf of the board to validate whether
Right.
we're in compliance with
right,
our own
exactly.
evaluation
And
system.
if that's what we're after, and I had to keep that in mind, that's what we're after, and I think this Sarah Denny would be the right person to do that. But I still do think that the board needs to be, and that's one thing that kind of came through, is that that both of these outfits really were saying, oh, we're doing this for the superintendent, and that's not really the case. They're doing it for the board because they're doing our direct inspection for us. And I think to clarify that all, I think that she should be reporting to a committee. It doesn't have to be joining me, but that's, I mean, even though that's adds more effort and such, but I think that that's fine. I think that's the way it probably should be.
Well, and I see David, the superintendent, being involved in that.
Well, absolutely. I mean, well, he's going to have to coordinate all the things, but we kind of have to make sure the questions we want to have answered
Relative
for
to
validating
that.
this are the ones that are being asked and the ones that are being answered.
So is there consensus that Martin and Julie meet with this bidder and clarify what the deliverables would be?
I'm okay with it.
And from a process standpoint, John, when you have two people submitting RFPs, is that a reasonable next step to clarify?
Well, it definitely is.
Okay.
Definitely is. And Krista was sick yesterday, Krista Chambers, and she was concerned about the process. And we went through today. I said, you know, it falls under the 15,000 bid limit. So, you know, the process can still, we've followed it great so far, and it's okay to now
It's
interview
not uncommon
both.
for you to ask questions similar to what you're gonna see other bids in here. We go back out, we want to ask some of, sometimes there's technical language that we might not
Right.
understand, so it's definitely an opportunity in the bid process to
Does
gain clarity,
Does that sometimes result in a rebid?
Oh, it could, sure. Yeah.
But then we would be the ones that have to, would requalify that, we'd have to do that,
Mhm.
I guess I would also ask, though, to get some specifics on the use, Cope's expertise with the Danielson model, because I think if we're going to have something evaluated, there should be at least some experience, understanding, expertise.
Well, I'm thinking that we're just going to talk to Sarah Denny, and if we're satisfied that she can
Okay.
answer our questions, then we'll go with this because
Okay.
it's so much less less costly.
Okay.
So yeah, if we end up not being satisfied, then we probably have to circle around to everybody and decide whether to talk to Cope or rebid or whatnot.
Sure.
So is that something that's on a relatively short string to have happen?
I don't think so.
We'll fit that in somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you have time? I don't
We'll,
have. Do you
we'll
have
circle time in there somewhere,
We'll figure
but
it out.
we'll connect
Okay.
with both of you on
yeah.
this, all right?
Well, the thing is, all right, let me back up. I mean, it
Well, we have
either has to be like right away, so she can get some things done before the end of school. As
Right.
far as, because part of it is interviewing. Well, she suggests interviewing teachers. We'll have to discuss whether that's necessary as part of the process we want.
I don't.
But I
think-
suppose she can look at the evaluations and all that stuff over the summer. She can talk to administrators over the summer. So I guess it doesn't have to be before school's up, does it?
Not necessarily, but I mean, if you wanted to inform this group, we've got the June 11th. I don't know if there's an update that might have been able to happen by then, maybe not. We've got a lot going on in between now and the 11th, but maybe we can shoot for that. And if then there is an update, that might be helpful to the board on keeping that. So we can try, and then if then there's a decision out of the 11th, and that would at least allow some kind of steps between then and June 18th with teachers.
Okay.
Right. So I'm seeing no other questions. I'm going to shift and hold on agenda item 12 since we have a couple of guests here. So we'll move on to agenda item 13.
So let me welcome Alyssa McDonald and Pat Phillips, who I'm kind of sad to say they're out for another night here because they've been pulling really, really exceptional duty in the absence of Patrick Burke, our principal, but they've been, and this is a really, really busy time of the year, and I know the board really knows that and recognizes that as well. But I want to just personally thank both of them for their hard work, and certainly also being here to talk about this very particular item that I think is really important work. It actually supports the work that they and the staff at the high school have been doing, but it's to talk about the Next Generation Personalized Learning Initiative grant. So welcome both Pat and Alyssa.
As I recall, we invited ourselves. We asked to come and work with you. So
How smart was that?
Yeah, we should have asked, is it possible to use the projector? We have some slides, but we're teachers and we could adjust.
I think it's probably
easily.
easier, Alyssa, if we could go without. I think it'd take a little.
Okay.
if-
Sure.
for the-
Okay.
Okay,
And I know
so-
that you do have kind of your,
Yep.
maybe your, I'm using placemat
Yeah, you'll get-
handouts
Yeah,
perhaps,
you
but,
don't see as much flash.
yeah, I know.
So, what we wanted to do tonight, Elizabeth and David have already gotten a preview, okay? We've talked about this. What we're trying to do right now is we're pursuing an opportunity that is certainly in line with our district goals and certainly in line with state goals, that will provide supports for us in terms of the personalizing the learning experience for kids. As you know, here at the high school, through our SLAM program, through our sophomore advisory program, and also through the Big Picture program, we've really focused on what's identified as a best practice and really trying to engage kids in their own learning as a personal experience. The state, as you know, has brought out statute that we now have to develop personalized learning plans. There's a timeline for that, and that's going to be beginning with our 7th graders in 2015, I think it is. And so what we're pursuing is an opportunity that will provide supports in moving in that direction which the state is requiring us to go in. But that's not the reason we want to move in that direction. Really, the reason we want to move in that direction is it's really best practice. I was thinking about it before I came here tonight, and I think between you and I think we have 60 years of experience or close to there in education. And we've seen some significant differences in not only what is delivered as instruction, how instruction is delivered, and really how to engage students. And it's not just due to technology, it's obviously due to a changing world. And so before we kind of go into the grant that we're going to pursue, the grant that we're pursuing is funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and we'll be talking a little bit about the New England Coalition of Essential Schools, which is really where this is directed to. But first, Liz is going to provide some context, and you're going to get what we refer to as the placemat.
Yeah, let's show you what we've been working on. Everybody take one of these. I will give one to our guest as well. Yeah. I was going to put this on the board to give us some larger font, but that's fine. So what we did, Pat and I, we're juggling all of these initiatives, all of these state mandates. We're trying to support the ends. We're trying to talk about all of it at once. So we decided we needed some kind of a graphic to put it all together and to help explain to teachers and then eventually students why we're going in the direction that we're going. So we're going to look from left to right on the top and then again from left to right on the bottom. And I'm just going to quickly walk you through this. So right now, as you know, at the high school, we're still using the SB 5 and 6 for our sophomore advisory program. Many of you have attended some exhibitions, which is exciting. And so you know about the SB 5 and 6, and so our teachers know of our students. We also know about the ends. And across the top, we have the 4 areas. And if you look at the ends, you can see that there are direct links back to the SB 5 and 6. All of them are represented in the ends. But we know that really needs to be our focus. So that's where our district is. When you look at the bottom, we start to look at where does Vermont want us to be. So far, the State Board of Education has adopted the Common Core State Standards as our standards for English Language Arts and mathematics. They've also adopted the Next Gen Science Standards as our state standards for science. We've got the State Board of Education, they've developed these educational quality standards. We call those EQS. Those are in the big green box. And they say that every school has to do a number of things. And therefore we have the bullets. Though some of those things include just what Pat was talking about. So if you go all the way to the right-hand side, you're also going to see the top 10 choices that came from our neighborhood learning conversations. We had 15 gatherings. People gave feedback about what they would like to see, what they would like to expect from a South Burlington graduate. So we have all of this feedback from the community. We have the ends that we need to meet for our district. We have the Vermont, the Vermont expectations, and then when you get to the little bitty thing, I didn't want to make this explosion too big in the bottom corner, it says what's next. So what's coming is state is asking us to move from Carnegie credits to create proficiency-based graduation requirements for our students to graduate from high school. Once we've developed our proficiencies at our schools, we have to have a mode for the students to meet them. So all students will have personalized learning plans. And as they proceed through middle and high school, their plan helps determine their path. And as they gain proficiencies, want to see the PLPs might be sort of like a dashboard where we collect all of the information that show which proficiencies the students have met along the way. Eventually, we will graduate. The final acronym on the bottom here is NEASC. That's the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. That's the organization that gives accreditation to high schools. I put that there because in 3 years we will have to go through the accreditation process. Okay. Now, going back to PBGRs and PLPs, we would like to, within the next 3 years, or really soon, within the next year, lay out our proficiency-based graduation requirements for our students, and within the next 3 years, have at the high school personalized learning plans for all of our students. We're ahead of the state with that goal. We want to meet that goal ahead of the curve. And we have this opportunity to participate in a grant that is sponsored by the League of Innovative Schools and the New England Secondary Schools Consortium. A lot of acronyms there. And it's funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So we're going to talk a little bit about that grant. Pat's going to start. We might have to narrow the scope. Yeah, we'll wing it. But I do have some slides for you. So.
Yeah. So we're one of 75 schools in the League of Innovative Schools. And David sat in on some webinars that have been going back and forth. We've sat in on webinars from folks here. And what we're really looking at is we're looking at a timeline for 2016 implementation of personal learning plans. And so we're competing, and what we're kind of competing for right now is we're competing, well, the number of us, 5 of us I believe, are signed up to go to a workshop for several days this summer that's going to help us in terms of developing personalized learning plans and really what that should involve. And as a result of our involvement in that and developing plans for personalized learning, we may then become eligible, one of 5 schools eligible for supports. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about the timeline with regard to that. It really is a great opportunity because what we can get for free is we're going to have an opportunity to work with a number of other schools on developing these things. And then we would get people who would come, no expense involved for us or for the board at all, who would come and help us in designing these personalized learning plans. At the same time as we're doing this, we're also trying to be mindful, as Alyssa alluded to, is proficiencies. So we're trying to weave the two of these things together. So the proficiencies are the other piece that we're trying to think of. And also we're trying to make it all one singular initiative, okay? That we're trying to achieve the ends identified by the board, and what we're doing is trying to draw the links between all of these other things that we have to answer to and the ends and developing personalized learning plans. The other thing I was just thinking of off the top of my head, Tim Weil, our Director of Guidance right now, is working with some other area schools, and they're working with Naviance, the guidance tool that we have there. And Naviance is actually working to develop a platform, a template, whereby kids can electronically build their personalized learning plans. So our goal at the end of this process is really that kids are going to have investment in terms of, with their parents, with their school personnel, developing a plan for studies, thinking about where they want to go. And then, as we do right now, sophomore advisory, have an opportunity to reflect where they're at given points, maybe make some corrections in their plans, and then monitor their own individual progress So that's really where we want to go with that, which again ties in greatly to what kinds of success our students have in terms of meeting the ends, which then connects to all these other standards that we actually have to achieve. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
So we could have gone about this grant in 3 ways. We had 3 choices. The first step we've already completed. We had a mini meeting with Elizabeth and David, and we laid out our plan, and then we sent a letter of intent to the New England Secondary Schools Consortium to let them know that we're interested in applying for participation. Again, like Pat said, we're going to go to this workshop. They're going to pay for 5 of us to go and get more information. When we get there, we'll get information about all of the negotiables and the non-negotiables for our participation. This is where the slides would have come in handy, but I could send those along later. Basically, they lay out a timeline, which would be really great for us. A timeline that says, by December of 2015, you will have accomplished these tasks in order to continue receiving grant support, and so on. The next deadline is April 2016. We would have a number of other tasks to complete. As we go through this process, coaches come to our school. Sometimes they're coming to coach, sometimes they're coming for checkpoints to give us suggestions. And we feel like that extra support, which is all provided by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, is a huge advantage. So the 3 ways we could have gone. There are some schools that already have developed proficiencies. They've begun to look at personalized learning plans. Those schools will work for 1 year and then launch their plan next school year, beginning in 2015. We're not ready for that. We think we're right in the middle. We want to take a year to prepare our staff, to develop our proficiencies, to be ready to then next year plan for our personalized learning plans, and then launch our plan the following year, beginning 2017.
I can interject too.
Sure.
One of the other things, there's also the state is sponsoring a series of workshops this summer at Castleton State College to again work on personalized learning plans. We're trying at the same time, because we understand that this is a piece 7 through 12 that we have to do. So we're trying to make sure that we work with our middle school folks to engage them. So it's a continuum. It's a plan that we don't have to shift midstream or anything. So that's a key piece.
Right. So, I mean, and that's what I was going to add.
Yeah.
So, again, the advantages to this so far, we'll get the school and coaching resources. We'll get a bunch of tools. They'll send us toolkit information. And then the biggest help, I think, will be the network. We'll be with a number of schools who are going through the same procedures, the same process. We can get ideas from them. We can visit them. They can visit us. And we think that this community of schools working together can help us reach our goals.
The other thing I just want to mention too is that this really is, it's a continuum of our work that we've done all along. I can tell you Liz has been strategic in terms of our work on our electronic curriculum that we've done, the Atlas Rubicon piece, which is key there in terms of identifying what are the enduring understandings, what are the essential questions for courses, what are the key things that you want students to leave those courses with, okay? And we tie those directly to all the standards that we have here. We're now doing the next step in terms of how are individual students going to connect with those things in those courses, and how does it look in terms of their goals and the overall standards they need to achieve in order to meet graduation requirements. So it's, sometimes we get in schools and people get concerned about multiple initiatives. We're trying to tie things together as much as possible, so it's a unified vision moving forward. So this is a great opportunity for us. And we really felt that you folks should know the direction we're trying to head in, and it's also great that it's not going to cost anything.
Right.
So a couple questions.
Sure.
The timeline for this granting, is that consistent with your timeline for doing things? Does it gate
So
anything in what
perfect.
you're trying to do?
Yeah, it's perfect. It lines up with the date that NEASC comes to visit us for accreditation. So if we follow this timeline, we'll be fully prepared for the site visit by the NEASC committee. And NEASC is also working with this organization. They're also trying to get some of this Gates money, and they're changing some of their expectations to be more aligned to the expectations of the NESSC, and they have a list of global best practices. So we really felt like timing couldn't be better.
So when will you know whether you get this grant or not?
We have already been accepted as participants. We will attend the conference in the summer, and then the way we stay in is by meeting the goals outlined in the non-negotiable timeline. So we will consistently have visitors coming into our school to evaluate our progress. If we're not progressing efficiently, we could either drop into the following year's cohort. Everybody else who's met the expectations continue on. We wouldn't be kicked out, but the more aggressively we pursue this, the more resources will be available to us, because the resources are going to the schools that are ready to move and ready to move now. Those resources will run out. So if we become part of that third cohort, we'd probably get coaching, but maybe not as many tools. We may not get the opportunity to travel and get the off-site professional development.
Very tactically laid out,
Mhm.
for keeping that engagement.
Yeah. We had to
An
be
expectation
realistic.
on
Of course, we'd like to be super aggressive and go for the big one this year, but realistically, we weren't prepared. We would set ourselves up for failure. We
My
we-
understanding, Alyssa, is that we don't control what group we qualify for. There's a
That's true.
possibility.
They may look at us and say, "Oh, you're
You're doing
advanced,"
great.
and therefore,
Gotta go.
we'll just have to accept whatever feedback. But when you look at the timeline and the tasks that had to be completed by December of 2013, we were not at the point where we could say we were meeting the expectations. For example, that first cohort should have completed their list of proficiencies, and their school boards have adopted their proficiencies, and therefore they're ready to move forward. Obviously, we're not there yet. We didn't meet that mark. We didn't really know very much about it. Pat and I just kind of jumped in when Mr. Burke began his leave. He said, "Oh, I've been going to these meetings. You should know about this now." And so we dove in head first, and we're carrying on his work. He would be doing this.
There's no loss if, regardless of where we wind up at the end of this process.
Right.
It's a driver for us, an additional driver, I think, in terms of going in the direction. So one thing I think we were talking about on the way in here is that both the state statute now and as well as this grant both call for the board to develop policy around personalized learning plans. And so that's something that we're going to have to go in the direction of.
So if we just follow the state's timeline, we would not have personalized learning plans for all students until this coming year's sixth graders became seniors, right?
Yeah.
Seniors.
Right, that's it.
So we would be well ahead of the state school.
So Lissy, your 2017 accreditation visit, does that, you will have conceivably had 1 year of
Mhm.
kids on personalized learning plans?
Yeah.
Is that part of the visit? And, yeah.
We've gone back and forth with the NES folks too, and they were initially gonna come in 2016. And they said, look, don't look at it as a report card in terms of A, B, C, D. Look at it, it's just a measure of where you are. And if that's the direction you're going in and you're midway in progress in doing that, that's just where you are. And so it's not gonna be punitive for us, I think.
What they want to see is that we're aiming toward global best practices for middle and high schools.
Is there middle school representation in the group of 5 that's going to this summer program?
Not yet, not for the group of 5. So the deal is we can send 5 at no cost. If the district chose to send other representatives, then it would be at the district's cost. We are definitely open to that. But they asked for specific types of people in the group of 5. And so we filled the 5 quite easily. But we are very open to adding middle school people. We have included middle school representation. We recruited some people to join us. Well, not me, Pat's gonna do this one. There's a course in Castleton about personalized learning plans. So there is middle school representation there.
So I guess I'd ask David, you know, if it's a strong recommendation that we would move this further along by including some middle school representation, just to understand whether.
And the other reason
That's
is
feasible.
the League of Innovative Schools is mostly, they're high schools. And so they do see the importance of including middle schools in a lot of this work, but the original application process is for high schools.
But we want to work with our middle schools.
And we do. We want to
Yes,
work. I mean, it's only going to benefit us to have everybody on board all at the same time. Everybody working together toward the same goals.
I mean, I think definitely as an administrative group, again, the high school has been very, very active in helping us move these things along. And I think our communication amongst the administrative group, elementary through high school, and again, the good work that, you know, Pat and Melissa have just talked about and showed you, we call it the placemat, has been also helpful information for them as well around understanding what, you know, our elementaries are feeding into and the need to be cohesive here. So we're definitely, you know, interested in making sure, again, I don't want to make that a 20 or 30 team visit type thing, but we definitely know we want middle school representation and assistance in this work.
And it is summer. And, you know, a lot of our administrators that we're going to be, to do this work, will be I'll be at 3 different conferences for a whole week this summer. 3 different places around the state and out of state. And it's kind of short notice, so it is a little difficult to get people on short notice. But I think that as we progress into next year, I believe right now our plan is to make sure that our TLCs, our late start professional develop times, will all focus on this work, on new learning that we need to gain in order to proceed. And I did mention that in June we also got this other incredible free opportunity. There's a school in Colorado called Eagle Rock School, and Diane knows about Eagle Rock. They led our tour of New York Innovative Schools. They are going to come to us, and one of their mission statements is that they will offer free professional development to schools willing to be innovative. And so they'll come to us in June and help our content areas, our departments, focus on proficiencies for each of the content areas. And from there, our plan is to take a look at the similarities. We think those that rise to the top, and that also meet the ends, will begin to draft the school-wide proficiencies. So that's our plan, to start in content areas and then to build up to high school. PBGRs.
It really is quite an orchestrative effort. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to this, but I think that folks are on board. We have great people. There's enthusiasm for it. You just have to keep the wheels moving.
Well, I know one thing I brought up at our mini meeting was the opportunity to, I mean, South Burlington isn't considered kind of deficient in many ways, so I know you've referenced the coaching resources and so forth, but it does seem like data is an area where there's a high need. So, you know, I don't profess to know anything about the world of grants, but to the extent that I know the gates have deep pockets and there's an opportunity to potentially pilot a unified data system that might support our proficiency-based graduation requirements.
Yeah, all of our decisions have to be based on data, and so of course a system for us to access data, to compile data, to get data in reasonably short time frames to help us make decisions. That's all going to be very, very important. It's actually one of the requirements of participation, but it's going to make us take some action, I believe, in that direction. And when you look at all the other things, all the system-wide efforts that also blend into this. I don't know how much you've heard about MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support. It's one of my week-long conferences this summer, but we have a team of people from the high school and another team from the middle school. We'll be at an institute together. We'll talk about how we offer supports from grades 6 through 12 and how we can do that with fidelity, with consistency, and all of that ties into, we need data to be able to make those decisions, and then those decisions are going to support the work that's on the placemat. As a matter of fact, I think we're going to make a border of all the systems all the way around this that are in play to help us meet the goals of this work. So you may get another visit from us after our district A team gets together and figures out what does that border look like. We want to have representation of all of our efforts.
This is really helpful. It's a great visual that just kind of shows the complexity of what's at play when you go about your day-to-day work with students and teachers. All of these factors, the moving parts, and aligning these. I mean, that's a huge job.
Yeah.
Wow.
It started to get scary when the state said, oh, we've adopted this and that, and you have to look at this. And so we said, no, it's really time to put it together so that everybody sees that all in one place, it makes sense, and one piece supports the next. And it's all, we're really going to change education for our students in the next few years.
Yeah, and I see this as a great tool. I mean, my own bias is to ultimately simplify this.
Yes.
And so there's consistency, but there's also kind of, this could be a roadmap for parents and guardians at a building level that, you could see the progress of a student through elementary, through middle, into high school, and there's common information, but there's also things that are specific to competencies and ends that might be unique at an elementary school, for instance.
That's true. And this is a draft. This is a working draft.
Great tool.
Every
Call it
time
a
I pull
roadmap,
it up, I make a little
placemat, something that provides
Watch out, it's going to be a tablecloth in
Yeah.
a minute.
We don't
We've
want that.
got to keep it condensed.
So how much is the, is it Charter or Agency of Education?
Agency.
I keep
Agency of
on
Education.
Agency of Education.
Easy to
Are they informed of what we're doing so that things coming from there aren't going to throw wrenches into what we're trying to do over the next 3 years? They
That's
may
a really
still
good
throw, they may
question.
still throw wrenches, but at least
Yes.
throw them knowingly.
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the things is that we when we were working with Michael Silvero from Eagle Rock, is we were talking about proficiencies, and shall we start globally or shall we start within departments? And we got word from the state that they were going to unveil at some point more global proficiencies, so it made sense for us to direct our efforts within departments at that point and see if we can tie those together with the global proficiency. So the state timeline, I think, is somewhat consistent with what we're trying to do with personalized learning plans. I think we'll be a little bit ahead of the game with this.
Right.
But I think they're aware. We're not the only school that's actually going after this money, too, in the state. I mean, CVU has been going after it. I think, I'm trying to think some of the other schools. There's a number of other schools.
Yeah.
So
And some of the schools that have a higher percentage of students in poverty will get more money.
yeah.
But the AOE is also applying for grant money from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to help the state align their plan. And if we had a projector, I would show you the new AOE website, which is very, very helpful. There's a very nice, succinct, easy to understand piece on PLPs and proficiency-based graduation requirements. The question you asked, Martin, is the question some of our teachers have asked. Why are we doing all this work when the state is going to unveil proficiencies? They'll unveil global proficiencies, and then the expectation is that what we decide locally must align to their global proficiencies. So some schools may say, we like what that is, we're just going to take it. But we really believe that the community, the entire community, students, staff, community members, everybody needs to be involved in the decision. And as we progress, we're going to try to continue the pattern of the neighborhood learning conversations to help us make decisions and to make sure we're inclusive of all voices.
This does align nicely. I mean, Rebecca Holcomb, who I talked about earlier, I don't think you folks were in here, but again, she was part of the sophomore exhibition experiences, and again, she's been very watchful and very open about some of the things we're doing in the district, and particularly the high school. So I think there's a watchful eye and alignment existing there, and then I think with some of the initiatives that are out there, when we talk about, where are we now, where are we going, that also does factor into where are we now, where are we going as a city, around the conversations that we've had with the steering committee, and all of kind of our sustaining efforts as a South Burlington community on how we make sure we meet the needs and an informed community, teachers, students, parents, guardians, etc. So, I think it's exciting. It is overwhelming. Again, one of our missions will be here in June, our administrative retreat for a couple days, is to actually, map ourselves out and to come up with those priorities. But in those, we know we have very specific deadlines and requirements that we need to be watchful of. And then what are the systems that are going to support that? And what about the organization structure that needs to make it happen? And again, we're hopeful that, that will put some good amount of time in talking about how to make that all work. So again, I'm very appreciative of both of you, again, taking the time to share with us.
And I just want to warn you, you'll hear from us more often because we will have to ask you for some help and some approval and to pass some policy in order for us to progress. So I see this as a great way for us to be working, side by side on this effort. So we'll invite ourselves to more communities.
Oh, always invite.
Be good to see you.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you both.
Well, thank you.
All right, take care. All right, why don't we move back to agenda item 12, big picture enrollment cap. This is an action item.
Yes. So in your packet is some information about big picture. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you want to take a look at this. It may be a little bit complicated. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for having me.
Kind of gives you a little bit of the history of what we've had in 13-14 and then 14-15 and likely returning. Again, we're still in this likely returning.
Mm-hmm.
The school year is not over, and again, there are some options for some of those students. So again, on the bottom, you see kind of our enrollment capacity. We'd like to remain and request to keep it at 30. We have the students that are either current or pending, and again, we hope that they'll continue, but has to be the right fit for those 18. 3 are in the non-residential, or what we're saying, the tuition-paying island students. As you know, we have those students that come to us. And then the school choice, under our previous act, these are students that have either not yet matriculated out of the system. So that's 1. And then 8 school choice that were waived, 4 from last year. And then 3 that are applicants and 1 that would remain open. And so
So I guess my question is that I hadn't really done the math so well last year when we were looking at the waivers and such, but essentially if we keep going like this, 4 waivers a year, we're going to have, 16 non-tuition paying students in that program? I mean, right now we're upping it to 8. And that concerns me a little bit.
That seems high.
It's a lot.
well, be 8. We have 1 open, so you're at 7. You'd be at 7 right now and then with 1 open, yes, you'd be at 8. And that you're right. It's 25% of the total enrollment, and
I guess the follow-up question on that is that at what point are we going to be taking away the opportunity from any of our students who are South Burlington residents to be part of that program? I mean, if there's 1 student who is a South Burlington resident who's paying tuition, can't make it in that program because we have somebody else in there for free, it's a major concern.
Yeah, that would agree.
yeah, I definitely understand. I mean, part of the running of this program does require the right kind of number, right? The right, you can't collaborate with, one yourself. So there is the right kind of makeup of the program. and then the resourcing of the program too. So, again, my hope here is that there are going to be some changes that will come down the road, or some local agreements around some sharing of cost. Again, this was a year that we know absolved those monies following students. Had we been under our previous choice agreement, this would have been continued revenue coming into the district.
At one time, though, David, we had a discussion about the fact that if a particular program like Big Picture didn't exist at other schools, which in fact it doesn't, that people could petition their school board for tuition to pay for Big Picture in light of the fact that it's something different that's not offered in their location.
That doesn't take us out of the equation in many ways. I mean, those are the conversations that I'm wanting to have with the superintendents. Again, I have had conversations when Act 129 came into play, and I think you're aware of us going out to make sure that those were grandfathered in. I'm happy to go back out and say, we do want to accept, but we do feel that there should be some enumeration that follows, and work to have an agreement. Again, I think, it can ebb and flow. I absolutely hear what you're saying. So, with us at kind of 19 this year and 5 more residents, we're kind of in that 24 category right now. Is that better? Maybe we stick at the 24 and don't bring in any others, but we know that there's others, that would really help our program benefit. That's a very much of an application process that makes a good fit.
So there are 7 less SB residents for next year that we anticipate, or are we sure that that's all of the South Burlington residents who will be in that program? I mean, is it already, these students have had their chance
Likely,
to
and
enroll?
again, this is still firming up because there's some students that, do have an opportunity to make some other decisions, and that's a good thing, around remaining in or going on to other endeavors. So that's why we
Or
view
getting
this
in,
as
I guess the question, or new ones getting in.
Yeah.
How many of the 20 are actually graduating?
How many of the 20 are
We're in the
graduating?
program this year
Right.
versus we're 7 less anticipated for next year.
Yeah, are those all graduates?
I don't know. I don't have that. I don't have the
Just
graduating.
look at the South Burlington residents, looks like a major attrition rate.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I do know we have graduation. I mean, Line, I know you helped me with this, but you don't have it in your
We
thread.
didn't get the complete list.
Graduating group.
Tim worked on it for us.
There's a good.
Actually, let me ask this real quick. It says another paragraph down, SB residents applications 5. Does that mean there's likely
5
to
in
be
addition
18
to 13?
next year?
Oh.
Not a drop off of 20 to
Mhm.
13, but a drop off to 18?
That's correct. And then down below it does
That-
indicate
Which
that.
is 18.
Okay, I just misread that then. Yeah,
So,
that's not good.
my one concern about us continuing to accept a certain number of out-of-district students without charge is that the impetus for a discussion with the other boards is kind of
Mute.
not there anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And while there are people who want to come, that's what's going to spur on decision-making.
I think it's fine if you want to direct me to, again, direct me to have a conversation before you approve this. Of the, I'm going to say the 6, well, in this case 5. You've got 2. 2 would be non-resident paying. 3 would be choice. That would be waived for next year, and one open. So of those 3, have a conversation with those sending schools to say, let's come up with an agreement that some amount of money follows. I'm
Can you
fine
say
to do
that again, David? I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
Well,
So you would have conversations with 3?
The 3
When there are
non-paying.
right, because out of
But
the
at
8
8
school
are-
choice waived, you have 4 that are returning. Now, I can certainly,
Okay, got it. Got it.
I don't think it necessarily, since they were in before, unless you want me to, I can certainly talk to those folks as well. But of the 3 that are applicants and the 1 open, have the
Well,
conversation.
I think we should have a going forward thing that says, we have to keep this thing going on a
Yeah.
financial basis, and
Right,
if we
so we
can't
can-
come to some
We can talk with all of those that are
the
currently
whole program gets in jeopardy.
non-paying.
So,
And I,
And again, there's redundant, I'm sure there's the same, some of the same are the same schools, right, with more than one.
I agree with that, but I also think that moving forward, there should be an understanding among other school districts, because they might have students that are interested at some point too.
Right.
So start with the schools that currently have students coming, but kind of get the word out that, we
Yeah, I
want
agree.
to be available.
That's good,
Students coming from other districts enriches our community, but at the same time, we need to make sure we have the resources to be able to.
Yeah,
to
I think that
offer.
this is going to require some very, very quick work, because we do have children's lives in here that we've, that have applications.
Is there a deadline for decisions?
Well, I mean, the students are making decisions now, as you can imagine, coming to here from 8th grade, and, whether they're
But
paying.
do we have a decision point ourselves?
Well, we set this cap last year in July, I think July 10th or
They
something
did
like
it
that.
after I came on board, so it'd have to be after the 30th of June.
So, anyway, I think that, that's too late. So it would be really important for me to do something ASAP and have it available to you for the,
So if I
Yeah, well-
recall correctly, last year, the economics were portrayed, if I remember right, that between 22 and 30, the costs were essentially the same.
That's right.
right,
Is that still the
because we
case?
still need the same staff,
Is that still,
at the
is
20.
that still the case? I mean, has anything
I
changed?
can
that would
revisit
make that
this,
different?
I can't, I'm
I
not
mean,
totally.
if it isn't,
recalling
if nothing significant's changed, that I don't think it'd be worth the effort, but.
Nothing significant change in operating. The staffing's the same.
So that window of population is essentially the same cost for the district?
Yeah, we, obviously if we got
Because
lower.
that was part of the reason for accepting
Accepting
kids
it,
in,
yeah.
That's correct.
was that it wasn't gonna.
But I don't think it's wrong to at least ask.
No,
and
no,
then-
it's, and,
I think it would make sense to direct David to go back and say, we're grandfathering the students who are in the program, but we need to have a conversation about the new applicants and some level of funding to follow
With
them.
the spirit of this has
Yeah.
proven to be a good program, we wanna sustain it, we need to.
Mhm.
So what kind of?
We're just a little bit altruistic, not completely.
Mhm. So beyond that, kind of, the request for some enumeration to follow the students, if I meet with them and, do you want this to be a drawn out, again, I have some timelines here to make sure we get back with students, put something in front of the superintendent, and then the appropriate school board may take some time. It's not going to be a decision that the superintendent is likely going to say, okay, we'll do it. It's going to be a school
I
board.
suppose we could always say that if you wanted to pay, you get priority entrance.
But I'm worried about, if you want me to report back on June 11th, I'm probably going to be holding on to some people in their application processes. I don't,
Well, it seems
how'd you like to do that?
The other thing is just going on Dan's point, if there's this break-even point of 22 kids or something like that, then I don't think we should take any more kids right now, because right now we have 22 people paying. But there's going to be, if there's going to be some more turnover of those who are paying, and next year we're going to populate this with yet 2 more non-paying people, then we're below that limit.
Mm-hmm.
If we have 8 people in right now, if we approve, that makes sense. It's just.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
You run the risk, and that's why it's gotta be, the vitality of the program is potentially at risk. Not the vitality, the
And
continuation of the
my
Not
program.
necessarily
concern
at
too,
risk, but
keeping
downsizing.
openings available for South
In the
Burlington
future.
students too.
Right. And in practice, is no South Burlington student ever turned down as long as they're qualified for the program?
They haven't been, as long as they fit the application
Okay.
requirements and are the right fit.
What if we're at capacity? So is 30 capacity? What if we're at capacity?
Well, I think if it was gonna be over 30, then they would need to come back to me and the high school administration and me to you to say, hey, we need to go one more, or whatever the case may be. But, I think the hard part about this is it goes against our grain around what's, and you heard Pat and Listen talk about best practice. We have children out there that we really believe, should have multiple learning opportunities. And we currently have a really important and good learning opportunity, and I think you all understand that. And so, boy, some of the moms and dads are out there and the students are saying, hey, this is a really important learning opportunity. But it's also at the expense of South Burlington right now. My hope is, with some of the leadership and some of the direction, we're gonna resolve some of these things so that money can move, you know? ADM, average daily membership money, will move with the student.
Just on this kind of program, big picture program.
Well, either this program, you know, or you know, more open choice in general, you know, for us to, again, that's gets into the 883 issues around, you know, the whole consolidation discussion. But certainly for this program, it would be or programs like this would be advantageous, where you're providing learning experiences, you know, that are really important.
Well, I mean, kind of asking with no teeth in it, unless we're prepared to sort of cap the current enrollment at 22, I think the asking may not make sense. But is there kind of more of a token, you know, we realize we want to respect that these students would like an answer, but we have a program to run, and we have staff to pay and facilities to manage, and, you know, let's at least be respectful of those students and the families who qualify, and set you know, not a token, but necessarily an amount that's less than what a fully loaded student would be, but something that says, you know, this is in recognition of South Burlington taking on student into this program.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, yeah, and you know, the response that we'll get back will say that makes really good sense, but we have no money, or you know, or from, let's assume that's from the board. Then what would you know? What will be the next step?
I think we have to deal with that when we get the response.
Right. So
I understand your sense of urgency for families, and I share that with you. But
well, we can put that off a little bit and see. John,
do we have in the other program, the general school? Do we have kids that are going out now? See, we don't have the whole picture. I mean, we do have some out, but again, they're not into a big picture type program. But
they're out in other schools.
But
so obviously,
if two of these kids come from Colchester, and we have kids going to Colchester, whatever.
Right. So
that makes a difference.
That's a difference. Yeah.
Sure. To understand the give and take. Right?
Yes, I mean, because if we have,
we're in the more receive.
If we have a limit of 8 plus 1. Okay, that's 9. That's our limit of liability. But if we have 12 plus 1 and we only have 5 kids going out, then we are. It's still that discrepancy in revenue. Mm-hmm. I'm not as encouraged. I'm not very encouraged that that's going to change.
Right.
Under the current money following.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I consider this like a microcosm of how we're as a district are going to have to deal with the program shrinking.
Right.
And it's like that, and we have to kind of plan that.
I don't think it. I really do think it makes a lot of sense to have a carefully drafted letter that puts, you know, kind of the information authority, you know, similar to kind of what I did when I met with, you know, the Agency of Education around when the absolving of Act 129 and the grandfathering those. I think that type of correspondence would be really important for us.
Well, this is a good example of a discussion with our legislators to kind of say, here's a unique program to South Burlington, and, you know, it's not sustainable without some funding. To sort of have the conversation, is there an opportunity to modify 129 so that it excludes, you know, programs that are unique to districts that otherwise, because right now this flies in the face of 129, and it's saying a student who wants to participate in this would not have the choice.
And it's an innovative program,
Right.
using proficiency. There's a demand for the program.
Yep.
We don't want the program to shrink.
That's right.
But I think Martin's onto something really strong here, and that is that this is perhaps a foretaste of what it's like if we tried to combine, say, AP classes or something like that. Okay, it's because of shrinking interests or shrinking populations, or a combination of the two. So it's a way of getting it on the table and getting it going in an area where we can tolerate something right now that, you know, maybe a foundation for how things are going to operate in the future. then, you know, we can reiterate the 129 deal, you can do all this other stuff, but I think playing it forward to, and this could lead to, you know, difficulties in achieving consolidations and things like this that people are talking about, not really consolidations, but sharing, collaborations, I guess is the word we use, right?
So what, I'm gonna be clear about what the next step is.
I think a carefully crafted letter to those people is the way to go.
And you wanna see that before then, any sort of decision is made? You wanna view that, maybe have the conversation, legislative breakfast, or
And
you?
I think you need to have the conversation with your peers and sort of see
And
where
get that
that's gonna
going.
go, and yeah.
And you want me to then, so letter, conversation,
Certainly in conversation, I would have no difficulty sharing with them the idea that the board is reluctant to continue
Just-
the absorbing non-funded.
and you see
students.
kind of what's happening here, yeah?
Well, and the other thing that we probably want to do, and I can take the lead on this, is, if we all agree, is I know the Vermont School Board Association has just made a call for
Resolutions, yeah.
resolutions.
I
And
think-
this, we can
yeah.
probably draft it more
It's a great-
broadly. I
great
mean, we do know
opportunity,
about
yeah.
our program, but there probably are similar programs across the state
It's a
that are
great
unique.
opportunity.
So-
And it's all under the umbrella of providing more choice.
Yep.
Right. So, right.
So write a letter, communicate with other
Included in the
superintendents.
legislative breakfast
and include it in
agenda.
the-
Yep.
Mhm.
I would encourage you to write the letter and follow up with a phone call and just say, look, I want you to make sure you understand what this letter really says, okay? Or where it could go.
And as far as giving.
Just, I mean, imagine where we would have been if the budget had been defeated.
Hmm?
This discussion would have been, I think, a different discussion.
Mhm. Yeah, if the budget didn't pass, you're right.
So what is the big picture program? I mean, what's that called? Like a unique program?
Innovative.
Innovative.
School.
All right.
So, just to be clear, we won't act on the cap limit right now until, we'll put that back on, we're loading up 11th here, but, Diane? So,
Can we do any of those things at some of these other meetings where we're gonna be sitting together?
they should really be warned, you know, they're gonna have to be warned, so that if the public wanted to come out for them, then they should be able to
Right.
come out and hear what you're talking about.
Okay.
Mhm.
Can't
Can I
blame me for
very,
trying.
very quickly circle back to something before I
Mhm.
forget it again?
If you're,
I'm not gonna be drafting a letter to the planning commission until we see the methadone clinic opinion come out, given what Paul said tonight. Because I know I talked about doing that at our last meeting, but I think it makes more sense.
Well, we have a period
that
of
will
public
be-
comment anyway, so,
Right,
yeah.
so,
Yeah.
anyway.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we'll move on to executive limitations policy monitoring on 2.10.
And I believe what this was just seeing it all written out. Does that sound correct with everybody? We wanted to see it printed and have all the corrections annotated.
Oh, yeah, the 2.1,
Right?
I think that was just passed out to us, but this is the curriculum development and review, is the one that.
Mhm.
Is this what we have on it? One pager?
one
Yeah.
sheet.
Correct.
And is it before us to approve the compliance plan? Isn't that what we do if there's a non-compliance issue?
Well, I think we're holding off until Stuart can be at a meeting, is that accurate?
You certainly can do that. The part is that we put it, remember we had, it was fragmented
Mm-hmm.
in knowing what that was, and so it was to get it all in front of you in one page, because it was spread over a couple pages and it wasn't in order, so.
So is there enough information here on the compliance plan for us to go through the monitoring report process? I guess that's my question.
You were close at doing it last time, but you felt that it was important, I believe, to make sure you saw it all together. Yeah. I don't know where, I gotta hear something, don't worry. No. I know, I'm shuffled paper.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have
That's
it
all
right
right,
here.
no.
I have lots of questions and issues.
If you have
actually.
questions, then
I don't know if we should do it now or at a,
Well, I would
not
s-
next meeting though.
Yeah.
But at a future meeting when Stuart can be here, or if you want me to.
Well, what I might suggest, you take a little bit of time, maybe just, and we'll highlight, and then maybe.
I'm
connection.
happy to kind of go over what my issues are.
Why don't you go ahead and do that, Martin?
Just one was, with respect to the report cards, you know, I guess I see 3 steps in complying, or I don't know if I call it in complying with this. I mean, 3 steps overall in how to run the schools in a very general, simplistic manner. That we have goals, and that's the ends, right? And then we have curriculum or curricula associated with those ends, and then we have grading on the achievement of those ends. And it seems like we just have the grading and the report cards, and we're missing that middle step for a lot of this stuff. Not you know, the academic stuff, but I mean, is there there's a question here. Is there curricula for those other ends that we're trying to monitor? I mean, citizenship.
This is where they
personal
put
development.
the word in, remember, and did like a search in the Rubicon Atlas to try to figure that out. So I don't think, it sounds to me, at least from listening to Stuart in prior meetings, that there's no concrete evidence
Right,
of
okay.
those things at
Yeah.
this point in time. They're trying to develop that.
And I guess then that's fine. Then what is this doing in the curricula development and review? This has to do with ends monitoring. I mean, if there's nothing in citizenship or any of these others that we have, personal development, I'm just reading some of them that are going to be in the report cards now. I mean, it's just not relevant if we're looking at curriculum, unless you're telling me, you know, that there's going to be curricula for citizenship and personal development, and there's others in here that are non-academic based. Then it doesn't do anything. It doesn't advance compliance.
Yeah.
You know,
So-
it's what I'm getting at with
Mhm.
that issue.
So, you know, I think, you know, again, overarching ends, right? Guided by curriculum that's gonna help you to get there through instruction methodology, instruction, that then leads to assessment. And so part of this is where we have ends, we don't necessarily have embedded curriculum, but we have instruction methodologies that we want to lead to get to those.
Okay. Well,
Quantified ends.
I
So-
guess that needs to be
That's right.
clearer, because we're talking about curriculum in this particular policy.
And I would say, right, curriculum and instruction, to make sure that we're getting, we're meeting the needs of our student, meeting the ends. And so I think this is a kind of a tough area, because we've identified in ends things that we absolutely want, those dispositions, for example. And we've teased those out of where we believe they are being taught, or identified in the curriculum, and where this is where Stuart talked about the proxies in the past.
Mhm.
But we're looking at then instruction and methodology, along with some of the, the changes that are coming down the pike with some of the work we're doing, to make that all kind of fit into the report card, because we want to be able to indicate on the report card how the student is doing in respect to the ends. So.
Right, and I agree with those parts, but it's just that how much, I mean, this policy is asking for written curricula. And I do understand
Mhm.
that there's proxies, and we've talked about that, and I have no problem with that.
Mhm.
But it just needs to be clearly connected, and that part to me is not clearly connected. Looking at the policy, I look and I ask, well, is the district going to have written curricula for these things, or are we calling it instructional guidance? And that could be part of the interpretation. And it's not answered. I don't think it was answered before on whether it's going to be aligned to the Vermont standards. There's a lot of talk about being aligned to the ends here. It's just, I don't know that it really.
It's good.
I mean, I understand it's a complicated.
It's all right. Let's work at it some more. This is a good conversation. It could be out of the 2.1 curriculum development and review. We need to, in the interpretation, expand my interpretation to include, instruction, more defining, what it is we're trying to do to be clear about how we're gonna meet the expected outcomes.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just, I guess the bottom line is focusing on what I think we do on this kind of policies is I just don't see that there's a clear plan to bring the district into compliance. And these are some of the issues I've just raised on why I have a problem with that. And I could, one additional one is, well, how are these particular ends picked for the evaluation and the report cards? And because it doesn't include all of them. And those are just some explanations I think are necessary.
Mm-hmm.
David, I'd like to see the board's ends replaced by district ends.
Yeah, we'll clean that up. That's happening in many places where it's,
That might actually require a reading of the.
Oh.
No, I mean that's in the policy itself.
It's in the next
so
time around. Can't do it yet.
Make those changes,
Well,
We
I
need
mean,
to make a
I don't
note
think it
that
was
we
purposely
should do it
omitted
next
or
time.
put in that way in
No,
a
we
certain
just-
way. We
Yeah.
I think it kind of became
Yeah.
synonymous.
Yeah.
Unless
But we
others-
can't just change it
No.
by unless they go through the readings and all that.
When I.
But interpretation, I can certainly
Yeah,
change
yeah.
Yeah, you can
interpretation
change
to
that.
reflect clarity until we bring it back.
I couldn't help but think when we went through Pat and Lissa's presentation that, based on the time period between when district ends were developed and sort of where we find ourselves today, had there been work being done on proficiencies as it relates to ends, that we wouldn't be stuck in this conversation.
Probably right.
Because I think the last bullet point, honestly, may become the most important, because the report cards themselves right now are
Kind of in limbo.
well, and in some ways I think they're an outdated assessment of proficiency.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess is those are going to get modified as well, but.
Yeah, it was my understanding that this whole thing was gonna go through a major redo by the end of the year, so a lot of these things could be swept up in that. So I wouldn't make the change I suggested just for the sake of today, just comprehend it in the next edition.
Well, I would suggest we bring it back and maybe allow Stuart to work on this some more with me.
Yeah, and I think the guidance Martin provided around kind of there's goals
Yep.
vis-a-vis the ends, there's curriculum and instruction,
Mhm.
whatever the means of developing that, and then there's grading and assessment.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions on that? All right, we'll move to agenda item 15, the annual school board agenda and work plan calendar.
Mm-hmm. And that is your.
And I think you have it in front of you.
Mm-hmm. So again, the lineup thankfully put this together. Also, there's some, looks like this is some of our proposed, and those are some of the items that have been on or, either holding or in other administrative reports. So she's included those on those too. This is similar to what Diane did for us last time. I think it was Diane who kind of took it from each board member and kind of put it into a priority ranking, and then we, from that, had the administrative reports that were generated. Names are, left blank on the monitoring reports. I think the other one that's important for me to say is on policy 2.1. The frequency of that is important, and also given kind of some more recent activity, the desire to have that sooner on a reschedule, which was, I think, is an important piece not to lose, and maybe we need to get that into the July or earlier,
So it bothers me, I have to say, that we have two 2.1s.
Yeah.
I think that's really confusing. I think we need to change
2.10
that.
and 2.1, you mean?
Yeah, because I'm looking at that saying, what are you talking about?
I don't know how we got that, yeah.
Well, it's 2.10.
10.
Well,
It's just, yeah, it needs to be changed.
Don't think fractions and
We could
stuff.
go Roman
Well,
numeral.
I'm
Don't
thinking
think,
fractions.
decimals.
I don't care what we do,
Decimals.
but
decimals. Yeah, I mean, the zero shouldn't
We'll call
really be
it-
there, it's 2.1.
Right.
Both are 2.1
No, it's
as
not
far as I'm
decimals.
concerned.
So what's the most efficient way to go about this, David?
I mean, I think it would be helpful,
I think we need, last time what we did was took this home and like,
yep. I would like to just make sure we don't lose track of 2.1
Yeah.
from your desired actions from tonight, so,
When are our next meeting opportunities to move, to accelerate that
and that's
back?
also in your packet too, again, thanks to Delina. In your packet is your upcoming dates.
July 9 and July 30.
Yeah, 11th and 18th of June,
Or July 9.
and then it kicks off in your calendar.
Oh, so we have 2 June
Bye,
dates?
Sabina.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Sabina.
June 11th, June 18th.
So, do you want to suggest, David, that we move 2.1 to the 11th or the 18th?
That would be good.
How about the 18th?
So we'll
Not
do,
responsive.
we're gonna do, so 2.1 and,
It's just,
June
as we were
18th.
talking today, we were adding a lot to the 11th.
Yep.
So I just thought maybe.
You know that's gonna be loaded.
18th.
The other thing, as far as for the calendar, I think we talked a little bit about this before on the
Mhm.
monitoring reports. I would recommend again that we don't have subcommittees this go round,
Mhm.
and we do it
Just
all
do it
as a
all at
board
once.
and all the discussion. in
so just
public.
take the names off
so
then?
against that.
I
I
know
have
you
to
are.
say, I'm so against that. I think our meetings are so long as it is, and I think it becomes so tiresome to do that. I think at least we need to have.
I think it needs to be public. I think this is the core of what we're
Well,
supposed
it is
to be
public.
doing.
It becomes a discussion with the whole board after it's been reviewed, and we all actually individually review it at some point in time too.
True, but things that I think are resolved in committee, and I think those things should be resolved publicly. At least, I mean, it's been a couple years since all of that dirty, detailed business is done in public, and I think that we should.
Okay, I disagree.
I have mixed feelings with it because it makes a longer board meeting, but it reduces the other meetings that we might have to set up in between meetings.
Right, there's that as well. And actually, since you've been keeping time and Elizabeth's been chair, our board meetings haven't been that long.
Well, the other thing is, what happens when we do
That
them
not true?
all together
It's
is
true, I'm
it
just thinking
invariably
of the
needs
diplomat at
changes, and
hand
they
here.
have to get carried over for so many meetings that it feels like, I don't know, it feels like really inefficient to me. But-
Well, how about we compromise and we say, let's do the first half of the year and see how it goes in the group session, and then we have the opportunity to
Reevaluate.
revert back to the subcommittee. I do think Martin makes a good point for the public to see the work that's done. It's relevant. to
Yeah, it's
policy
definitely
work.
relevant.
I agree, it's not as efficient. I absolutely agree it's not as efficient. But,
Well, from the standpoint of this meeting,
right.
in terms of total hours,
it
Right.
may be
especially
a
on the
wash.
part of administration, it might not be that efficient.
Yeah.
And I think if we start seeing like 11:30 p.m. end times for board meetings, we may want to revisit going a whole
Sure,
full
let's
half
give
year.
it a try for the first
Our
couple months.
benchmark is the end
Yeah.
of the same day we started.
Yes. Because
So the
I'm
first
just-
half of the year with subcommittees, like through
Without-
November or without?
subcommittee.
Because when we first
So
started, that we were meeting till 10:30, 11:30, and
Yeah.
12.
So let's go through
It's gotta end the same
December
day they start.
without the subcommittees, and then we can reevaluate.
I'm sorry, Elizabeth, what did you say?
We're gonna go through December without
December.
the subcommittees, so we don't have anything in December, but.
And I don't mean to remind you of this, but in the 2.1, that I wasn't on the committee, and I think I extended that by about 45 minutes. So.
We didn't do it by committee. That's
Yeah, you and Diane did.
No, we did not.
Was that
We
the
were,
one?
we planned to, but we decided we
Or was
couldn't
it a
do it.
different
And so what ended up happening is this is a good example of what happens when we don't do it by committee. But okay.
There was one we did by phone.
Yes, John.
I don't remember.
I have a
It wasn't
suggestion
bad.
in January, the second meeting.
Mhm.
We have a 2.4 for audit later on in March.
Mhm.
We have a 2.4, the financial condition and activities, but I really think we should have a 2.4 retirement actuary report.
Mm.
Because someday I won't be here, I always do it, but someday somebody else will be in my position, and I think it's really important to have that there.
So we should add,
Add a policy report on 2.4 financial conditions and activity
In
/ retirement fund, or,
in what time frame?
well, January, the second,
So move it from forward
meeting
to
in,
March.
no, that's the audit.
Or that's the audit report.
The second meeting in January is what I'm
And
thinking.
is that a monitoring?
I would say yes.
So it's a 2.4
So it's
financial
moving-
condition
moving this
specific
one?
to retirement.
Yes, no, it's it's just another 2.4 that
Okay.
serves a
An
need.
element of financial conditions,
Right.
right? Yeah. And actually, that was something that I had mentioned to David, is do we want to, evaluate any emergent needs based on some of the press our sister cities are getting? And that would seem to make sense.
I was in that tri-state business managers meeting last week, and there's new accounting rules for retirement plans, and of the 90 people there, I was the only one that had their own plan. Everybody has Maine or New Hampshire or Vermont, so that's one thing we really need to focus on, where other people aren't thinking about it. We know that, but just want to make sure it's there forever.
Okay. The other area we have talked about in the past is setting up maybe a quarterly, might be too frequently, but twice a year retreat, which serves both as a kind of a catch-up opportunity, but potentially an opportunity to discuss more strategic issues. Do we want to get those on this calendar?
I'd like to see them on there. I'd like to see them positioned so that they have some impact on the way we think about budgets and that sort of thing. At least one of them.
You have them on there, Elizabeth.
Where are they?
In August and in April.
Yeah, there's
Special board work meeting at the bottom.
Okay, that was it? Okay.
We decided
They
to
may
change
not-
the name
but they're not
from
maybe-
retreat.
Yeah, they may not be in the right spots.
Yeah,
but-
you may need to change the.
But I
When
think
you
we
have-
decided it wasn't really a retreat, it was
Correct.
more work meeting,
Correct.
so that's why we
Right,
changed it.
I'm going to put the forced march to baton.
Yeah.
Is that an extra meeting, or is that just scheduled as a second meeting?
It's an extra meeting.
So August,
Well, you can look at your August calendar.
is August relevant in terms of pre-budget work? We're not going to really see a lot, John, of,
We're not really ready doing much then. It's more
But there's a
September,
potential,
October.
Before we decide to move it back, I think the other side of it is if some of this work decides to do something differently, there may be some pre-study that has to happen, that really, I speak for myself, not for John. If I were doing the budget, I'd like to have somebody give me the direction, and I'd just like to be let loose to go do it and not have to worry about it changing a lot and things coming at me.
well, August isn't a bad time frame too, because we're sort of coming off a little bit of a hiatus and we're gearing up again, which is, I guess I'm anticipating being a little bit fresher. So should we just keep these on, and these should be scheduled as more like, what are we thinking, maybe like 3-hour sessions, working sessions?
Yeah, we need to, I think there's some agenda work that needs to be done for those. It can't be last minute and be
Yeah.
done well.
Well, some of this, for me, it's the work we're doing with administrative retreat and planning, and you heard some of that today, our planning or mapping ourselves out a little bit, and then that can work into the defining of the work and the need and the want to then developing a the budget that helps to work that, so.
Well, would the board be open to having, maybe Dan, you and I could put a proposed agenda together for that August
I'd
retreat?
be happy to help with that.
So maybe we can present that. Do we have a July meeting?
We have
Yes.
One.
two.
So maybe
July 9th and
we have
30th.
two. So
Yeah.
maybe we could present a proposed agenda at the first July meeting.
And one in August, right?
Yes, we had to change that one in August, August 6th meeting.
Mhm. So that's the calendar.
And then,
Yeah.
what else on the calendar? We've got the breakfast on.
I mean, this is always the time where we say, how did we do this year? What were, I mean, I also
Yeah, I
have
mean,
other
a
distractions.
couple things that jump out at me would be, I mean, we need to make sure we sort of keep the city school meetings, I think they're a little bit frequent
I
right
know.
now. I would take those to once a month tops.
Okay.
But I think we do have to include board representation at the administrative meetings.
Mhm.
We didn't do that as often as we had intended to, so I would put these on that calendar. And then do we usually go through and rate these in
Yeah.
terms of, okay. So one follow-up would be for the board to take the calendar home and then also to rate these topics here.
I wonder if I could just make a comment, and I don't have the exact dates in my head, but November, we're doing, I guess, didn't we say we would do policies not in the months that are kind of pre-budget? Does anybody remember that
I
conversation?
think we said we weren't gonna do monitoring reports
Right.
when we were in the middle of budget.
And so,
So that's why
So
we
we
kept
don't have
December,
any-
January as
right.
relatively free.
but I'm just thinking, we've got 2 in November, and maybe, it's too early. Maybe we're not quite in budget season yet, but should we put anything in May versus November? Having 2
I think
in
those two that are in November, well, curriculum could be complicated, but global executive constraints pretty straightforward,
Okay.
isn't it? No, well,
Yeah, that
no.
one's
It usually seems to be easy.
Okay.
Martin, you also had a
Quick one,
request, I don't wanna lose, that was a desire to have something more in front of us, and that was on ends.
Yeah, that we have ends monitoring.
And is this
every
doing
3
what-
months. Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I noticed that.
And are those in the right spots that you want to see them?
That's more frequent than you
That's
had
up to
them.
administration, I think, more so, when it works best for you guys.
It's
I just wanted
quarterly.
to see it quarterly. I mean, I wanted to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Are there some new policies that came out of the legislative session that we need to, they fall under the category of mandates? I mean, there are a number of them. I don't know if they fall within policy governance, but.
I was gonna raise some of them, right?
What's that?
I said I was gonna raise some of them.
That are kinda governing changes, you think?
Real,
The open, I mean, there's the open meetings, some changes that are relevant to what we do, and there's a couple other things, but.
So, I mean, I haven't gotten the total summary of all of them, so that's in part kind of the desire to have the legislative
Mhm.
kind of summary, and I think VSBA, VSA, VPA, probably VSEA, which is the special ed group, have all kind of legislative
So
information.
have we got, we've got review new legislation in September, and then we've got the breakfast, but these breakfasts tend to be before they go into session.
Right, and I think, given how, if they're open to doing the one that we're gonna do here in a little bit, we can capture that one too in June maybe, if that works.
Okay. So is there agreement that we will independently and individually rank these topics? And take another review of the calendar and provide that feedback? prior to the 11th?
Can you email this to us so we can fill it out on email and email it back?
Look at that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and now we get to set the agenda for the June 11th meeting.
All the things that.
Turn that over to Diane for recommendations.
So,
Okay.
I have, and I don't need to do it necessarily, I've kind of extended a little, some offer about the South Burlington Energy Committee. I also have a likely shared proposal around a solar possible array to be combined with the city around,
Who's doing that presentation?
well, the Energy Committee would be the South Burlington Energy Committee. And probably would need, and I may put it to the second meeting in June on the solar array proposal with the city on the landfill, landfill property. There's a small array that they would like to put up there, and they're wanting some school participation in that too. So we have to look at that proposal first, and I have to vet that. I haven't done that, but it's likely. So one is the South Burlington Energy Committee, just to get in front of you and say hello. Try to keep that short. A lot of good energy, no pun intended, on that committee. And then we're going to change the update proposed 5th grade to a report to the board from me. We're going to bring big picture back. Right?
Can we move items 9 and 10 under 5, under announcements?
9 and 10.
That would seem to flow a little better based on how it went today.
Yeah, so move 9. Just move those. Oh yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So if we're having an energy committee and the other solar thing and the 5th grade report, are we gonna have all these other things too?
So aren't you suggesting that we push this off to the second meeting?
The array proposal
Yeah.
will be in the second meeting in June.
So it's just the energy.
Just the energy committee. They're gonna talk about the desire for solar arrays and all of that. I'll
So-
give you. Acceptable use, I actually had a meeting today. We're working on, I can just give you an update on that discussion. I think that's fine. I'm not gonna have done a lot with that. We were just trying to look at all kinds of pieces of information that we have currently that has to do with social media, computer, and pulling that all together and looking at whether it's doing what we want it to do.
And could you call it acceptable use of social media, just to make it for whenever?
Or responsible use. We have all kinds of
Whatever.
different things there, yeah. For technology.
And that would take that off a future agenda item.
Mm-hmm. I think I would like to keep the music plan. That was one that was on there before. We can get that done.
I don't see an update on the foundation on our proposed reports.
We've done it. Mm-hmm. But
Is that part of the alumni, the foundation?
We've kept it separate. It used to be
That looks separate.
included, but separate. Well, we can get it back on there. You want to put it back on the calendar?
Well, I'd
Or
put
in
it
our
maybe on
monitoring.
this list at least. Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So I assume we're not doing curriculum development next time? That we can kick down the road a little further.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd probably take that one.
And since we have the music program trends on number 12, can we take that off here? That's on here as
Should be
well.
off, yeah.
Yep.
And alumni would come off too.
Mm-hmm.
The foundation would be added. Do we, is the mentor program update a big report, David?
No, I just asked Susie to give a little update on, again, this is a program transition year, and so just gonna give you a short presentation. I can keep that, ask you to keep that fairly brief. Or are you thinking you wanting it in a different format, or you wanna move it?
I'm just trying to be responsive to the other meetings we have that week.
Mhm.
How about July?
Yeah, I'd like to move that.
Fine.
Yeah.
If we do it in July, you can tell her that we can have a nice little slideshow of all the pictures.
So that's fine.
It's always a highlight.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to, are we okay on future agenda items? I guess we should make sure, do all the future agenda items, are they in the list, Delina?
I'm not sure, some of them belonged under administrative reports, and that's what the list is.
Yeah, there's like the policy consideration for performance evaluation. We were
That
talking
really
about
should.
whether there should be a policy.
Right.
Oh, like, yeah.
So, and that's not really, but it should be in the future agenda items still, I think.
We've kept, that's has been our kind of placeholders, you know.
Same.
I started to,
Fundraising's on
and then
here.
it came to those, and
Mhm.
Yeah, because I owe you a plan on that, which is coming, so.
So should we take that off of future agenda
Mm.
items if it's on?
Well,
rather
the
not
problem is
lose
it
it.
might not make the priority list. on
Right,
here.
so it's important that.
Okay.
And I'd recommend you know, we keep these, look at them and vet them kind of
Mhm.
against your other list and give
Yep.
me the feedback.
All right, so we'll move to agenda item 18, consider the minutes of the meeting of May 7th. Were there any changes?
I had a couple changes. And I can hand you these changes actually.
Okay.
But, under school property regulations, towards the bottom it says 3 of the 10 prohibited uses recommended by the board have been added to the safety zones. I would strike safety zones and instead say draft form-based code, because they have not
Mhm.
accepted safety
Mhm.
zones. My other change is in administrative reports, school action plans. There's the second to the last sentence says, all students are expected to be proficient in 2014. That kind of reads as if we expect that everybody to be proficient
Mhm.
in 2014. I would suggest instead to say, under the No Child Left Behind law, or under No Child Left Behind, all students are supposed to be proficient in 2014. If those are acceptable, I can just give these to.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Any other comments or changes? All right, seeing none, those minutes are accepted. And we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have a number of new hires, a number of resignations or retirements, and we have 3 bids.
So a couple of these, the hires in here, again, follow along with the adopted budget. I do want to just allude briefly that we are picking up some additional students beyond what we thought from our sending schools, particularly one school, Georgia, and the islands. We're bringing in 41 new students. This will be our largest year ever coming out of, Georgia. There is a little bit of some add to staff here in that regard, but again, it's offset by that enrollment. The other piece I'd like to just recognize is that we do have, under resignations and retirements, we do have an individual or a program that we were just talking about, and that is Jason Kushner. Again, not to leave out Laura Bonazinga or Amy Pasadente, but Jason Kushner, I just would like to make sure you're aware that he has been connected to the big picture, and some of you, I think, have had the opportunity to meet him, talk with him, not saying that you haven't met the others, but I felt like that's an important highlight for you to know. And then obviously the bus bids, and if there's something specific that you'd like to ask, again, I want to hats off to John. This has been a really busy time for his office, and pulling the bid specs together, opening the bid process, getting the clarifications and questions, receiving a lot of feedback sometimes from folks that might not be happy with the recommendations, and us then following through on that. And again, his office has done a good job, but there may be some pieces here that you wish to take off to further to discuss, or John, anything to add?
The bus bid was really spirited, and the bids are really close. And Clark's in Jericho haven't been a dealer for many years, and they got their dealership back for internationals. They were the highest bid. We got a bid from Rhode Island from Bluebird. We don't have a lot of experience with the Bluebirds. And then we received the bid we're recommending is from W.C. Cressy in Maine, who works with Charlevoix. In the past, we've gotten that bid directly from Charlevoix, which is in Colchester, Milton area now. But so we're very familiar with those buses, and our mechanics many times are driving because of the shortage of drivers. So that played into the decision. There's some spirited discussion with the dealer in Jericho about whether this was we overlooked a local bidder to go to Maine to buy buses, and really took that into account. But I do think that the bus that we have it's Thomas Freightliner versus International is better for our service, and it's proven to be that. So in case you hear any feedback.
And again, I think, in that particular example, one in Jericho does and has provided good service to our buses, and as a district, we, very much support and pay for those services, and we're respectful of that. But again, he had a fair amount of questions around our bid.
The second big bid is the roof at the high school, the art wing, and we actually got 3 bids, but one was not qualified. And there's asbestos there, and it's so we had money in contingency set aside for that possibility, and we've used all that, and we need about $12,000 more out of contingency to do this job.
Was that largely due to the asbestos abatement?
Yes.
Because I noticed the bid was quite a bit over budget.
Yes, it was the asbestos abatement. We also received bids for our Chamberlain School, and they're really high, so we're evaluating what to do there so that you don't have that before you tonight. And then the office supply, Elizabeth asked for trends, and office supply is just a part of general supplies and school supplies. The chart of accounts doesn't segregate office supplies. So what we spend in school supplies, including books and all, is a lot more than what this bid encompasses. W.B. Mason won 2 out of the 3 criteria, and this other company, Bucks, actually was lower in toner, but they were using recycled toner, so the numbers look funny, but we think it's the best recommendation. Once again, that was really spirited. I have to call some of these people tomorrow and tell them they weren't selected. So it's good. It's good. It's spirited. People want to. It's sometimes the bus bids are one company gets the bid and we're all set. And that's not the way this time.
Okay. Any other questions on the consent agenda? Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda for hires, resignations, retirements, and bids as proposed?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? The motion passes. We welcome our new hires and congratulate and thank our resigning employees for their service and retirements as well.
Thank you.
All right, any questions on accounts payable order number 42? All right, and do we want to do the evaluation the way we did last time? We don't have public here, so maybe this will be the quick one. All right, why don't we take a few minutes and do the self-evaluation? Oh, good for you, Dan.
Delina can do it.
Yes, please, Delina.
Are some of these delivery nameless?
Yes.
Sign the blank ones.
If I can get one for myself then, huh?
Honorary.
Honorary ring.
Can I ask a question while you're signing, or while you're doing your thing? It's unclear to me, so now there are some answers to questions, and I thought we weren't supposed to be asking questions.
Well, there were a few questions. I chose to put them in that format as opposed to just responding, but there was a few questions that,
I think we.
I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to answering the questions. I think, you know,
I submitted those. I didn't anticipate a written response. I anticipated they might be addressed verbally here.
yeah, and so.
I think it's the administration's choice of
Mhm.
how to respond. If it's gonna take too much
I don't know, do you,
to respond in writing, answer us at the meeting, maybe that's, I mean.
so I could have done that and just said, you know, these are
Okay.
some of the questions that came in.
It's whatever is gonna be more time.
Did you get a chance to, did you read these?
Yeah, I read them when we got here.
And so maybe that's the most efficient way to do it still, if there are a few, but, I don't know, we can talk.
Yeah, the idea was we were trying to save
Yep,
you
I know
time
that.
and drafting the answers in writing can sometimes take longer.
I don't think it should be hard and fast rule, no question, but it's just a matter of
How
flexibility, that's all.
Flexibility, how,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
But sometimes the succinctness in the data is important.
Am I reporting back or am I telling you this?
You can report back, Neil. Oops, except for
I can
Diane.
report back now or next time?
We wait for Diane. Well, because we don't have a lot of outside feedback, I just report back on this one.
God, they were nasty candy.
Well, that was the best they had. I like those. You seem to be liking them.
Yeah.
It's like a Swedish fish with a pixie stick.
So these are the three people that are affected.
Oh, okay.
And this is before
I see.
Okay.
Any others?
Do we have
the
anybody?
others are.
I don't have anybody. I'm looking. I'm trying to read Dan's
You
writing.
juggled the dollar amounts, so figure how much is left over back in the base, right?
Yeah.
But these are all people, well, this one doesn't get affected by the base, but these other all people are gonna be, all the other blocks, as we understand it, are people are gonna be out of scale. They're gonna be, you know,
Okay.
they would wanna go to another step, but there wasn't one to go to.
Yeah, there is, right, okay.
So,
Okay, that'd be, I
That
could,
last
yeah.
section
and then, if you could run that by
Is
Julie,
that,
so that she can authorize it being sent along with that.
Okay.
to like memory, because I can write from
Okay, reporting
John
back.
thinks he can do this tomorrow,
there.
and what I told him, we run it by you, and authorize it being sent on, I don't know who's, for the day, whoever sends it on.
All right.
So for the school board, the board meeting evaluation, Looks like everybody agreed. There- Although it wasn't clear, Diane is undecided on whether we've moved things from the parking lot. I think we, at least a couple people said it was very nice to have more student, voice at the meeting.
Sabina's finally comfortable now that she's gonna leave.
Yeah, exactly. And at least a couple people were impressed and pleased with the presentation from Lissa and Patrick. It was good to have them talking about that. A comment which is from executive session, but it won't reveal anything from executive session. I actually commented, I thought that we, in particular Elizabeth, did a very good job of emphasizing the policy during the executive session when we were discussing a parental complaint. And let's see if there was anything else interesting to. At last, some progress on the teacher evaluation. That was another one. All right. So on the superintendent feedback. Sorry. The executive session feedback, let's see, agrees. We have a disagree on the agenda was followed. An adequate time was allowed for board discussion with respect for published schedule to the public. And that's the only disagree that we have. Well, I guess we have a two disagrees on the, oh no, here's a disagree on the board was informed in a timely manner of any significant incidental information. This was an executive session issue. So there we go.
Okay. All right, any other matters to come before the board? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.